Okay, I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Harlingen City Commission to order and call upon Mayor Pro Tem Danny Castillo to lead the invocation.
Please join me in prayer. Father, we thank you for another day of life. We thank you for the opportunities that you have given us in what we do daily. We ask that you would continue to guide us in the business of the city. Give us of your wisdom and of your grace and favor, Father, so we can do things that are good and correct in your eyes and that are in the best interest of our city. Father, we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody. Glad to have you all here. I'm going to go item. Just to let you know, with the commission's indulgence, I'm going to take up items 1, 2, 9, 22, 20 and 21, 19, and possibly 18 if required, in that order, and then I'm going to lead the meeting. Item 1 is the public announcements of events.
Good evening. In terms of our upcoming events, tomorrow and next Wednesday will be the final 2 Spanish movies in a series that's been provided at the Library Auditorium, sponsored by the Consulate of Mexico. So we hope folks will take an opportunity to experience that cultural arts event. Also coming up on Saturday, March 23rd, hosted by J&B at the Harlingen Community Center, there will be the Collectors Expo from 9 to 4. Children under 12 are free. Children over 12 will be $2. But there's going to be a lot of food and fun and toys at that event, so it should be a nice family opportunity for anyone into the comic book superhero collection mode. Also on Saturday, March 29th, there will be a Bark for Life hosted by the American Cancer Society. That will be from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. at McKelvey Park. It's going to be a fundraiser for research, education, and advocacy and service. It honors a lot of different canine caregivers. So if you're a dog lover and you're interested in the American Cancer Society, that would be a great event to attend. On Saturday, April 5, our Harlingen Police Department will host the 2nd annual Autism Awareness event at Lonsea Hill Park, and at the next meeting we'll have a definite time on that, and I'm sure we'll have something on the city webpage soon on that. On Saturday, April 12th, there will be the 3rd annual Kid Fit Festival and Fun Run hosted by the Junior League of Harlingen at Lonsea Hill Park from 8 a.m. till 12 noon. They come up with a wide range of activities for kids to get them out and physically active to combat some of the health issues here in our region. On Saturday, April 19th, there will be the Valley Praise Aid Drop at the Sports Complex adult softball field out on Wilson Road from 11 a.m. to 2 in time for the Easter holiday season. And that completes the upcoming events. Thank you.
And tomorrow morning is the grand opening of the Sam's Club at 8:15, 8:30. Tomorrow. So come out of that, but more importantly, go shop at Sam's Club. Out to Neighborhood Clean Sweep held March 8, 2014 from Hale Street to Glasscock on Falcon Street, including Houston, Bottom, and Blue Bonnet Streets, District 3.
Do we have it on it? Yeah, there. Yes, Mayor, they had the this cleanup March the 8th, and you see here some of the debris and material that was picked up during the clean sweep. We picked up approximately 1.26 tons of debris. It started about 8:30 and goes on to about 12 noon. And you see some of the volunteers that helped us with that cleanup. We're certainly very grateful for everybody that participated and some of the entities that participated. The Tamayo Home for Boys, Michael James, Donna Henderson, Ricky Reina. Commissioner Mesmer was also out there helping us, so we certainly appreciate his time. We do this all the time, so the next one is going to be April the 12th, and the cleanup will be from North 26 to North 27 from East Harrison, including Wheeling Park. That's pretty much it.
Okay, is there anyone here to be recognized on that? Or?
Do we have
I
anything?
have no.
All right. Well, we thank everybody for participating in that cleanup. Those are great for our city. Item 22 is an executive session, closed meeting pursuant to Chapter 551, Sections 551.072, 551.071, and 555.087, Subchapter D, BTCA Government Code regarding the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate regarding commercial and financial information from a business prospect with which the City Commission is conducting economic development negotiations and or to discuss or deliberate financial or other incentives with the business prospect known as DPC and to seek legal advice from the city attorney regarding that subject. This will just be an information item. It'll probably last about 10 minutes. Is there a motion that we go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, the City Commission will be discussing a project for hopefully a short period of time, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Now, we're out of executive session now at 5:55 p.m. And we're going to go to item 9, which is a public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading for a specific use permit to allow our recycling center ferrous material in the light industry district located at 5001 East Harrison Avenue, bearing legal description of Lot 1, Block 1, Funk Seed Subdivision, applicant Francisco Rodriguez, Carabinian Steel. I have been, the city manager advised me that the staff is not ready to move forward with this. They've got some other information they wanted to bring to the Commission's attention. So I would like at this time to entertain a motion to table item 9.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Okay, now we're going to go to item 20, and I have been advised that I can call item 20 and 21 together.
Yes, Mayor. Items 20 and 21, which really relate to the same subject matter for purposes of the open session, should be taken up together. Now, you are able to, if you want to talk about the candidate for the position, you can go into executive session on that under 18B. Okay. But as far as the open session item 20 and 21 being part of the same subject matter, can be taken up together.
Okay. So I'm just going to do that. Item 20, consider to take action to confirm the city manager's appointment of the public safety director of the police and fire departments, although police and fire departments. Item 21, public safety. Consider and take action to abolish the public safety executive manager position to oversee and supervise the City of Harlingen's fire and police service departments, including eliminating any modifications to the City of Harlingen organizational charter. All right.
Mayor and City Commission, I would ask that the Commission consider the appointment of Thomas Whitten to the Director of Public Safety position. As you know, Tom Whitten served as previously as chief for the City of Harlingen. He's a 16-year veteran of the El Paso Police Department and has previous chief experience with the Carlsbad, New Mexico, and the Wynn, Iowa Police Department.
Mayor, I think I've talked at length about this, but I think it's good that we have this as far as open to the public. I think everybody understands that we had that first vote back in February, and I was one of those that voted in favor of going in this direction initially. But the more that I've thought about this, the more that I've really thought about the ramifications of what we were doing. And I voiced some of those things, to you as a commission, as my fellow commissioners on both occasions that we've met. I really think that we're going in the wrong direction by creating this new position. And let me explain why. I mean, fundamentally, I think I disagree with our move here because a city of our size, I think that, number one, aside from the individual that we're considering today, I mean, not to question the qualifications. I think Tom did a good job while he's here. It really has very little to do with the individual. I'm talking about more of the structural makeup of what we're contemplating. I think for a city of our size, I think it serves in the best interest of both departments and of our citizens that we have two independent directors of those two different departments. And one of the biggest reasons is the fact that each of those different functions have unique skill sets that are pertinent to that specific discipline, whether it be fire or police. And I think historically it's worked very well for our community, and I think it will continue to do so. I understand there's been some changes that the city manager wished to do within the fire department, specifically about the director or the department head. I don't think that we have to get a police professional to oversee a fire department discipline. I don't believe that we could say that we are not or incapable of finding or identifying a qualified fire chief. We don't need a police chief to be overseeing the fire department. I think that's why we have the city manager functions. That's why we have the assistant city manager functions. And I think it's just a wrong mix. I don't think it's going to be a good fit for our city. And I didn't script anything to talk here. I'm just sort of talking from my heart on what I believe on this. But I can say I've really given this a tremendous amount of thought, and that's basically my position on this. I think we need to keep them two separate independent functions, and the decision as far as who is the department head for either one of these functions, that's a whole other question in and of itself. I think right now the biggest question we have is charting the course from this point forward as far as how we're going to manage both of those very, very important public safety functions. And I think it also says a little bit about ourselves as far as what we think about those two different departments. And I choose to believe that whether it be from within the department itself or another fire professional, I believe there's going to be someone out there that we can identify that has that specific level of training and experience and expertise to run that department. We don't need the police department overseeing that. Again, that's why we have the city manager's function. It's worked very well historically, and I think that's the way we should continue to do.
Ditto. I agree with Mr. Castillo. I think we cannot create another position on the fire department where we got several men they can do it.
Well, I want to clarify, we're not creating a position. What we're basically doing is putting additional duties into the police chief's an established position, which is the police chief position. So it's not a new position that would be totally funded.
Well, yeah, and let me just, I think that's the point that's important to clarify. That is, there would still be a fire chief under this scenario. There's still a fire chief. The fire chief's going to run the fire department as it would be. And I don't think that perhaps we would be considering this position of the public safety director if we didn't have a proven individual who we had mind to do it. I think if it were a different scenario, the position can always be established. You can always go back to doing what you've done. If you have a proven manager, then that manager can continue to do the job that he was doing before, which is to run the police department, and simply taking on the first line of supervision of the fire chief instead of the city manager. And if you think about it, maybe this is a change in the organizational chart. It's a line, instead of a line being drawn over here, it's a line being drawn over here. And I wish this, unfortunately, this has gotten to be viewed as some sort of affront to the rank and file fire suppression employees. That's not what this is about. This is about, management making a decision about how best to manage the resources of the community and to best, manage departments. The board of directors, in a corporation, the board of directors will hire the CEO. The CEO decides who the department heads are supposed to be. And he decides how the organization is going to be operated from a management and operational standpoint. And that's what we've done. As the city commission, we've hired the city manager. We've placed him, we've given him the position to make these kinds of decisions. We don't make those, we don't let employees make the decision about who their department head should be. We let the manager make those decisions about who their department head should be. And in this case, we've identified an individual who's worked for us before, who's had a good record. He's done a lot of good things for our community, and I think we all recognize his capabilities. He'd like to come back. He'd like to come back in this position. There'll still be a fire chief. There'll still be a fire chief that's going to run the fire department. But you're going to have, and instead of him reporting, instead of the fire chief reporting directly to the city manager, the fire chief's going to report to the public safety director, who has equal expertise in matters of collective bargaining, in matters of civil service issues. And so, to me, this was not a big change. This was a smaller change. This was a change. This was a moving a line in an organizational chart and trying to put the best person to assist the department as we move forward, especially when we're having a change in leadership in the department. So I think we ought to consider those things. I think we ought to consider the fact that we have asked the city manager to. This is what we asked the city manager to do. We asked the city manager to make these decisions and to make these recommendations. I have the greatest respect for Commissioner Castillo and his experience, and I believe that his heart is absolutely in the right place, and he wants to do the best thing for the city. At the end of the day, I think this is a management decision, and we ought to support the management's decision on this.
Mayor, I concur with you. When I've been approached, I think the biggest complaint that I keep hearing, that I hear over and over, this won't work because we're going to have one person managing both departments. But that's erroneous, because our plan is to continue to have a fire chief and to continue to have a separate police chief. The difference is going to be is that dotted line is now moved from here to here. And I concur. I allowed Commissioner Castillo, I allowed him to put this on the agenda because I felt it was important that we at least talk about it. But I concur. I think from a management standpoint, this is just a management decision as to at that highest level. It's not going to change anything that's happening within the fire department, because they're still going to have a true fire chief making fire chief decisions. The way I use an analysis is I own a company and I have a bookkeeper. And that bookkeeper can sign a check. But under certain conditions, that bookkeeper needs to get my authorization to do certain executive decisions. And that's what we're saying. That fire chief is going to continue because in the past, he went to a city manager. And instead of going to the city manager, he'll now go to his supervisor. And so the decision-making level at the fire chief level is still the same, won't change. All it's gonna change is the mentality. He'll be talking to a public service mentality rather than a manager mentality. And that's the way I look at it.
Why we have to pay Chief Tom to come back and manage the police department and manage the fire department? He's not gonna be able to be in most places, so he's gonna send somebody to put over there to, I mean, it's still gonna have to pay more money to him. I don't see it right.
And I think part of your argument is now you're arguing over who it is, not what the job function is.
And as far as I'm concerned, again, I think it's good that we discuss this, and I do respect.
Very
and
helpful.
appreciate the fact that Commissioner Liao agreed to at least put this on the table. And I'll say it up front, I think you all know where I'm coming from on this as far as a person, is that we can discuss this, we can make decisions, and at the end of the day, at some point, we can agree to disagree on certain things. On this particular thing here, I respectfully disagree with that perspective and that viewpoint, because it's not simply just a line on an org chart. Our decisions affect, our employee staff. I mean, we've called them family, we've called them, and they are. And sometimes we're gonna have to make decisions that may not be popular, may not be well received. I can understand that. I've made those decisions before. But I also disagree with the fact that, to a certain extent, that it's a management decision alone. If that was the true case, then he wouldn't have to bring it to us for us to approve that move, or to validate that move, or to, forgot the term right now, but.
I didn't really mean to say that. I mean,
well, I know, but I'm just sort of clarifying
I
that, so.
I don't mean to interrupt you either. I mean, management, this is management. It's not for, it's for the management to decide who runs the department, not for the department to run.
Right, and that's a good clarification, because I wanted to make sure that that was understood, not only by myself, but by everybody, because we do have a responsibility to give proper guidance to our city managers, and ultimately, each of us have a responsibility to our constituents to make the best, most informed decision. It may not necessarily guarantee, like in this case, it may not guarantee that we all agree that that course of action is exactly the way you or I would agree upon. But that's where I'm coming from on this. I mean, there's no secret, my background in public safety, there's a certain culture that's within that world that we can't overlook. And again, I go back to my one strong point that I have in my mind is, notwithstanding the qualifications of Tom Whitten, I mean, the gentleman his qualifications speak for himself. I'm talking more about the position. I'm talking about more of that organizational chart. I'm talking about that little line that we're talking about that represents something that affects two of the biggest populated departments within our city, that do what we applaud for, and we hold them in high esteem because of what they do. And then for us we may not be saying that specifically, but I think it could be interpreted as though we're cutting short, let's say, the fire department, that we really cannot find an equally qualified fire chief. I choose to believe that we can. We don't need to have a police officer with very good skill sets. In essence, basically, we're creating him to be an assistant city manager. And if that's the case, well, then maybe that's something we ought to talk about in a whole other thing. Draw another little line on the chart, and if that's really our intent, I choose to believe that we can find a qualified fire chief and a qualified police chief and do it that way.
Well, I mean, I think we are going to have a qualified fire chief and a qualified police chief. We're just going to have a police chief that also holds the title of public safety director. And I agree with the city manager's position, and I don't see this as some kind of a permanent change, that when we do this, we'll be doing it for the next 30 years. It's obvious that we're doing this because we have a specific candidate in mind that, for career advancement or whatever reasons, it's beneficial to him and to us to do it this way. So if he were not to accept the position, or he were to leave in 5 years, There's no saying that we can't go back to doing it the way that we're doing it right now. All we're doing is changing the reporting line from somebody reporting directly to Carlos to the fire chief, who will still have the same duties and obligations and responsibilities that he would have otherwise. He'll just be reporting to the public safety director. That's the only difference.
I would like to, if we're gonna vote on these positions, I would like to vote one by one.
Yeah, we will.
Well, I just want to say that at the end of the day, this commission makes the decisions. Staff moves forward, whatever the decision is made. I just make recommendations which I think are beneficial for our community. I see there's a lot of firefighters here, and we certainly appreciate all the work that they've done, and we thank them for that. At the end of the day, I think my goal is to try to have the two best chiefs in the valley. You have the best police chief and you have the best fire chief. And at this point, I think we have the ability to be able to do that with the candidate that we have in hand. And we have another agenda item, I think, that you're gonna see that we have some very qualified individuals that we think can fill the role as far as the fire department is concerned with. But having said that, certainly whatever the decision is made by the commission, that will move forward.
Okay, we'll take up item, unless anybody wants to say anything else, take up item 21, and then there'll be a motion, that'll be to abolish the director. If we abolish the director, there'll be no need to go to item 20, because we won't be able to appoint that position. And item 20 will become moot. So is there a motion to abolish the public safety director?
So, Mayor.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Yay.
All right, the public safety director position is abolished, and we will not be able to appoint police chief / public safety director tonight, because that's not on the agenda. It remains to be seen whether we'll be able to bring Mr. Whitten back. We'll talk, but the city manager will talk to him about it. Item 19, consider to take action to confirm the city manager's appointment of the department head of the Harlingen Fire Department effective immediately until the fire chief is appointed by the city manager and confirmed by the Harlingen City Commission.
Is this an open or?
Unless, except does somebody want to go into executive session on this? Do you want to go into executive session on it? Okay.
Mayor and Commissioners, I would ask that the commission consider my recommendation to appoint Rogelio Rubio as interim fire chief. Mr. Rubio currently works for South Texas College. Previously, he served as fire chief for the city of McAllen from 2006 to 2012. And also he worked for the fire chief, he worked for the city of Huetlaco Fire Department from 1981 through 1999, having served as chief for the last 6 years.
I have a question. You said interim.
Well, I mean, I guess technically fire chief until another appointment is approved by the commission.
I have to disagree. I know it may be technically the same thing, but I think it's important from a public perspective, first and foremost, that it be specifically stated as an interim fire chief, for the sake of the public perception on this.
Well, that's the way it's listed. That's the way it's listed on the agenda item. It's an interim. I think the confusion may be that our lawyers have told us that there's really technically there's no such thing as an interim, but the intent is that he's going to be an interim. We'll see how he does, and then reevaluate. The city manager will reevaluate and bring back a process for a permanent position.
Go ahead. I had
some period of time.
One other question for the city manager is, I think it's important to, since we're out here in a public meeting, as far as, I know the question is going to be posed as far as why were we not able to identify somebody from within the fire department to serve as an interim fire chief for that short time that we have to evaluate the department and to seek a permanent fire chief?
Well, I think we do have a very capable individual that's currently helping us with that department. But I'm looking at it as I'm trying, I think, a new set of eyes, fresh eyes. We're going into collective bargaining. And Mr. Rubio has extensive experience with the collective bargaining process. And, you know, he did come in and assist the city of McAllen that had similar issues to what we're having. So based on that and on the credentials that he has, I would ask that you guys would consider him.
Well, one point to make as far as that goes on collective bargaining, I mean, that's why, I mean, I tremendously respect Rick and his services as the legal counsel. He served that very well for us within the area of collective bargaining. So as far as that goes, I know even me, as when I was police chief, I didn't necessarily sit at the table when we went about doing collective bargaining. We'd have the attorneys counseling and other city staff that would really take the leadership on that to sort of separate the department head that's closer to the workforce from some of those decisions. And then they would be referred to back for counsel just on management issues. So as far as that goes, as far as having an interim chief, I don't think that should be that big of an issue because, as you stated, we have qualified people. I don't know who you have in mind that could potentially serve internally as interim chief. But I think we shouldn't overlook that. If that's the prevailing issue is on the looming collective bargaining.
Well, I don't think that's the prevailing issue. I think that just, you know, bringing in new leadership into the department would serve as well. And I think Mr. Rubio has a proven track record. And that's what I would ask the city to consider.
You know, corporations hire within and they hire from without. New sets of eyes, new life experiences. It's a hybridization process.
Is your intent to advertise for a permanent position at some point in time? Is that what we're going to, because that's what, we're using this word interim. I want to make sure that we're all.
I think my focus has been on making sure that we have somebody that can hold down the fort. Once we get past that, then we're going to go into looking at the process of advertising and going through that process.
Okay.
You know, contacts within the fire department have told me that it would be very nice to have a leader as soon as they can so they know what's going on and it reassures them that there is leadership, city manager down.
And I think it's important for the fire chief to know that he has the support of the commission and it's not some temporary job. I mean,
Or that we're not going to seriously consider him
Right.
for the permanent position. I mean, but this is an individual who has served as a fire chief in 2 other communities and has good recommendation. So, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the city manager?
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, well, that motion carried. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, I'm going to leave the meeting. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Castillo to take over.
Okay, we will move on to item number 3, approval of minutes, 3A, March 5th, 2014 regular meeting. Any additions, deletions, or changes?
I move approval of the minutes.
Second.
So motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Moving on to the consent agenda, 4A and D. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
So a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Moving on to item number 5, public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading for a specific use permit to allow a portable building greater than 120 square feet in a planned development PD district located at 4515 Graham Road, bearing a legal description of Lot 146, Lakewood Village Subdivision, Unit 1. Applicant is Gary R. Ball.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. The applicant is requesting a specific use permit to allow a portable building that's approximately about 320 square feet to be used as a proposed Texas room on this property. This is a subject property. It's located on the subdivision to the north of Graham Road on Chippewa Circle. It's a senior gated community. This is what he's proposing as a Texas room on his property. Generally, the subject property, which is approximately about a little over 4,000 square feet, it's one of the larger lots of this mobile home development. He's proposing to allow this Texas room towards the rear of the property. Generally, 3 months out of the year, the subject property is occupied with an RV on the subject property. This is the proposed or the existing development. There's a mixed use on this property. Generally, there's RVs and mobile homes on the northern end of the property, and on the southern end, you have the single-family houses on the subject property. And this is the applicant's lot right here. Generally, these requests, when they come in before the city, they're generally processed administratively, unless the staff receives a written complaint within 10 days that this item is posted in the newspaper. In this particular case, staff did receive 12 written concerns from property owners. The concerns generally range from, at that time they didn't know what the structure was going to look like. They had concerns about their covenants, that it wasn't allowed per their covenants, although the city doesn't enforce covenants. And as you can see, this is the existing structure. We did notify the property owners. The departments did review the request. Staff didn't receive any objections to the request. Staff and P&Z Commission recommend approval subject to the applicant's engineering plans and compliance with the requirements of the appropriate department. I'll take any questions, and the applicant is also present for questions.
We're going to go right into the public hearing, and then we can open it up for any questions. The public hearing. If there's anybody to speak for or against this item?
I'm Gary Ball, and I have more pictures of this if you guys would like to see it from different angles. Thank you. That is not the building that I'm having. Mine's getting custom built. Where that one has a window and a door in the front, mine's going to have a sliding door. The entry door will be over around on the right side of it there. And I have a Airstream travel trailer that I travel all over in. I bought this lot. It was off the courthouse steps 4 years ago. It was the cat lady's house, and it was dead animals and everything else. They'd been 15 years getting this trailer out of this park. I cleaned the lot up, poured concrete, and at some future time I'll probably want to put a park model or a mobile home where I could build a house, because like Joel said, it is one of the bigger lots. And in that Lakewood Village, the properties are about 50-50 on houses and trailers and mobiles and double wides and stuff like this. And then, can we change the picture back to that from this point here, these lots down around here are RV lots. You cannot have RVs in this section up here. And that's the way it's been since it was incorporated in 1983. And if anybody, right now there's only 2 empty lots, 4 RVs, mine and another one over on this east side. And the east side. But anyway, if somebody wanted to pull a trailer out of there, you could put an RV in there. And I understand this building's a little bit bigger than normal sheds, but the front half of it, I want just like a 10 by 12 living room. Then the back half of it, I want to divide, have my workshop and vise and tools in there, and then the other side, just a shed. Rake, hose, shovels. I carry stuff from Kansas City down here all the time, and I don't have a place to leave anything. Got to have a lawnmower down here. And where a lot of the mobile homes, they put the big mobiles in there, build a carport on the side of it, 50, 60 foot long. Then they closed half of that off and made a Texas room out of it and still parked the car, and they still have a shed in the backyard that they're putting their tools and lawnmowers and stuff in. So this building will be a combination of both. And my neighbor John and Bertha, they have the house directly to the east of me, and I've got the same siding. They've got a mobile home, putting the same siding, the same windows and everything to match what's there. In this part, we have a 6-sided gazebo music room house. It's closed in with windows and it's painted yellow. I mean, you got to go a long ways to find something that conforms with and everything. But the shape, the size, the design is best I could to match what Bertha and John have, so it is aesthetically, and instead of having an empty lot, there would be something there all the time. And I can answer any questions.
Yeah, Joel, I have a couple of questions.
Thank you.
This will have electricity and plumbing, and this will be on a cement foundation, concrete foundation.
No plumbing.
No plumbing on this one, it's just have electricity but no plumbing.
Okay, and I've only been in Texas for 33 years, so forgive me. Define a Texas room.
It's Texas room. This is more like an accessory building, I guess, for like a what he described to play cards and watch TV with his friends.
It's a little bigger than a Kansas room.
And a little smaller than a man cave.
That's pretty much.
I know.
I agree.
We still have the public hearing, so.
Yes. I wanted to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Because you live there,
Yes, sir.
and you're in my district there.
Yes.
Okay. And you said something interesting. This site is RVs, but it's not exclusively RVs.
No, sir.
Okay, so y'all allow, because I know on the east side of that property, that's all strictly anchored housing. You cannot put an RV on that side.
No, the top of this building picture is
But
north.
you're right, that is north.
Is
You're
north.
correct.
On the south, from the clubhouse here, north, you can have RVs, park models, mobile homes, brick houses, and there's all of them are in there.
Okay.
Here you can have park models, mobile homes, double wides, and brick houses.
Okay.
The RVs are not allowed to sit in here, but I'm up on that end out there, and the Texas room's just a room that you go out and sit in and get out of the camper and have some room. I'm going to have a big round card table in there, a refrigerator with some Coke in it, but
Okay.
Joel,
Thank you.
I have
Yes,
a
sir.
question. As I understand it, they have an architectural review committee in this plan development.
yes, sir.
So all we're doing is step one that he has to go through, and he conforms with everything that the city would require him to do.
Right.
And then when it comes to whether his neighbors like it or not, he's got to fight that battle on his own.
Correct. That's correct.
We are in the public here.
And the Planning Zoning Committee and last week approved this unanimously in the vote that they had that they took then, and left it the same thing up to our homeowners association.
Thank you. We're still in public hearing. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this item?
For the record, Jose Arroyo Jr., and my questions are directed to Joel because Joel would be the expert on this. Joel, generally on portable buildings, we have a 12 by 12 limitation, right?
Correct.
So how is this one, which is 12 by 12 would be 144 square feet, how is this different?
This was a little bit different because in the mobile home ordinance, they have a limit of 120 square feet. If it's greater than that, they have to apply for a specific use permit. If this had been in a single family district or commercial district, well, for example, a single family district, he could build a 12 by 12 or 144 square feet portable building or storage building without a specific use permit. If it's greater than that, if it's greater than 144 square feet, he would need a specific use permit. So the requirement's a little bit different for a residential district versus like what's mobile home use, even though it's a planned development, but it's mobile home use district.
So because it's larger, that's why he's coming with you?
Right, since it's larger than what's generally allowed in a mobile home area of 120 square feet, that's why he's applying for a specific use permit.
Thank you for clearing. You said 144 twice, so it's 120 in a mobile home, 144 in a residential.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, and obviously, he's chosen to just put electrical but no plumbing, right?
Correct.
And, well, eventually, I guess we're gonna have city staff inspect this for compliance with code, right?
Right, he's gonna have to submit engineered plans and apply for the appropriate permits to meet the requirements.
Okay, for the record, I have no objection. Thank you.
Somebody else would like to speak for or against this item?
Yolanda Shaw, the post office box 697, I'm against it. To me, it's spot zoning. Spot zoning is against the law. And if you have them do that, then others will do it, and next thing you know, you lose control. Spot zoning is against the law. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this item?
I'd like to say just one more thing I forgot. The city code calls for the building of this size to have 6 30-inch anchor tie downs like for a mobile home. I'm putting 8 on it to help hold it in place, and instead of being on a concrete foundation, when I decide to build on this lot, the reason it's portable is so I can adjust it one way or the other without tearing the foundation. And this was all approved by the codes and everything. And I've upgraded this building for everything like this.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this item? Close the public hearing. Is there a caption to read?
An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance number 07-27 of the city of Harlingen to issue specific use permit to Gary R. Ball to allow a portable building greater than 120 square feet in a planned development district located at 4515 Graham Road, bearing the legal description of lot 146 Lakewood Village subdivision unit, subject to 1, submitting engineered plans and applying for applicable permits. Building, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical. 2, must pass a fire inspection prior to obtaining a certificate of occupancy. And 3, comply with all pertinent city ordinances, codes, and standards, providing for publication and ordaining other matters related to the foregoing.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to, that'll be for 5B, consider take action to approve and adopt an ordinance of first reading for the specific use permit as presented. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Move on to item number 6. Public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading for a specific use permit to allow a bar, lounge, dance hall, and a light industry district located at 1510 North Commerce, bearing the legal description of Lot 1, Block 1, Casablanca subdivision. Applicant is Vivian S. Limon.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, the applicant is requesting a specific use permit to allow a bar lounge on the subject property. Is located on the east side of Commerce Street, south of Markowski Avenue. This is the subject property. This is generally the view of the property. It's a mixed-use property owned by the property owner. Generally, you have apartments on the northern end of the property. You have a restaurant here, and this is a subject building where the applicant is proposing to have a bar lounge. It's about 4,700 square foot building. Previous use of the property was a bar there. I think the previous use was a El Corral bar. Prior to that it was Flamingo, and before that it was Davila's bar. This is the subject building you can see here. The request was reviewed by the appropriate city departments. Neither of the departments had any objections to the request, subject to the applicant applying for the appropriate permits. Police report was also provided for the establishment for that area, and most of the incidents were mainly for the apartment use, not for the bar that was previously there for. Public hearing was conducted by the P&Z Commission. We also notified the affected property owners with a 2-foot radius. Staff didn't receive any objections to the request. Staff and P&Z Commission are recommending approval subject to the applicant providing and maintaining the required parking, which let me just go back to this view. He is proposing to provide additional parking on the northern end of the property to meet the required parking requirements. Additional requirements he's going to have to provide surveillance video with a 30-day retention video, provide the appropriate lighting, as well as maintain this 6-foot solid fence, which is on the right adjacent to his proposed building, as well as comply with, maintain all his proper state permits and comply with the requirements for the appropriate city departments. I'll take any questions on that.
Didn't we just do
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Yes.
Isn't this deja vu?
We did
all
this
over
about
again?
a couple of months ago, but the applicant wasn't able to comply with the required parking. He had stated that he was gonna pave this area, he never did, so he never opened up the establishment.
This place it's been there for years, so, I mean, and that's what it used to before that, so.
Right, and of course, each case is different because
Is
the
it different
parking.
owner, or?
Yes, different owner, that's all.
Each case is different because on a bar, the parking is based on the seating, so one bar may have had more seating than the other. But the last one didn't open up because he didn't meet the required parking, or he had stated he was gonna pave this area, he didn't, but this time the owner is in agreement to pave this area to provide the required parking.
So it's based on how many tables
Seats.
and chairs and physical people he can occupy in.
It's based on the seating, so one parking for every 2 seats, that's how it's based on.
And also, normally, I believe in the last time we did this, and we gave a 6-month trial, then an automatic, if there were no problems, we extended it out to the year. Are we doing that again with this one, or where are we?
For this one, I don't think that was for the case for this one. I
Okay.
believe it was proved outright. I don't think
It was all, okay.
Here we have a public hearing, this item, and open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak for or against this item? Being no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the attorney to read the caption, please.
An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance number 07-27 of the city of Harlingen to issue a specific use permit to Julian S. Limon to allow an adult business bar, lounge, and a light industry district located at 1510 North Commerce, bearing a legal description of Lot 1, Block 1, Casablanca subdivision, subject to 1, provide and maintain the required off-street parking spaces, 2, improving the existing parking lot to meet city standards, 3, must obtain and maintain the proper state and TABC permits, 4, must provide and maintain video surveillance on all entrances and exits, and maintain a 30-day retention of the video. 5, must provide adequate lighting on the premises. 6, must provide a licensed security guard during peak hours. 7, must maintain the existing 6-foot solid wooden fence in the rear of the property. And 8, comply with requirements administered by the planning, building inspections, health, fire, and police departments prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Move on to item 6B, consider take action to approve and adopt an ordinance on first reading for a specific use permit for the above described property.
So moved.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Item number 7, public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading to rezone from a residential single-family R1 district to residential single-family R1 district to residential multifamily M2 district for the properties located at 1617 East Monroe and 1621 East Monroe, bearing the legal description of Lot 11 and the west 10 feet of Lot 12 and the east 60 feet of Lot 12, Block B, East Park Terrace subdivision, applicant Fernando Vecina.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, the applicant is requesting rezoning this property from residential single family to residential multifamily to allow for a duplex on the property. His lot is about 60 feet by 140 feet in length. His neighbor to the east signed the application to have his property zoned also to have a pattern of multifamily zoning on that area. Staff also advised him to zone this property here to multifamily as well. He was unable to get the property owner to rezone this property or to agree with the application. Most of the use in the area is single-family residential use, with the exception of the properties along the frontage of 77, which are commercial use. This is an aerial view of the property. You can see this is the restaurant and Rancho restaurant, and there's a commercial business here. The rest are mainly single-family houses in the area. To the north are the storage units of the property. As you can see, the subject property is currently vacant. The one to the east of him has a single-family residence also on the property. The one to the west is also a single-family residence. This is what he's proposing, is to have a duplex on the property. We did have a public hearing and notified the property owners within a 200-foot radius. Staff did receive a concern from a property owner at the meeting. His concern was mainly the parking in the area, but once he saw the site plan, his concerns were addressed and was satisfied with the site plan. The future land use shows this as low-density residential. The P&Z Commission considered this request, or considered the proposed use being in a duplex. They considered that low density, so they recommended approval, of the request. I'll take any questions on that.
Can you go back to the slide with the, where you showed the retail right here? We already have the across the street from that catty corner there, it's already multi-family.
Right.
And then you have single residence, and then on that end you have single residence. And so you have that one that's become an island.
Right.
My question is this. Is it possible to zone it multi and to remain with a single family house there? That way in the future, if they ever decided.
Yes, single family is allowed in a multi-family zoning district.
But if we were to just make it multi-family all the way across.
Right.
And that way we don't have to address that one lot again.
You're trying to put Joel out of a job.
I mean, I
could
read
do
the
that
notes and he just didn't want to do it.
He didn't want to do it, of course. We could do it in this, or you could do it, but of course, for this case, we didn't advertise for that particular lot. We only advertised for these two lots.
Okay.
We did advise the property owner when he came in that if you could get this property owner to agree to submit an application along with him to rezone that property, I believe the applicant wasn't able to get the property owner to sign it, but at least he didn't submit one. So.
Okay.
So we'll be back.
We'll be back, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing on this item. Is there anybody who'd like to speak for or against this item? Please come forward. Being none, I'm going to close the public hearing.
An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Harlingen, rezoning lot 11 and the west 10 feet of lot 12 and the east 60 feet of lot 12, block B, East Park Terrace subdivision located at 1617 East Monroe and 1621 East Monroe from a residential single-family R1 district to residential multifamily M2 district, providing for publication and ordaining other matters related to the foregoing.
Going to item number 7B, consider take action to approve and adopt an ordinance on first reading for the rezone request for the above described property.
Get a motion. Second.
The motion and second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. On to item number 8, public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading to rezone from not designated N district to general retail DR district for 0.156 acres out of block 11, 3.97 acres out of block 12, 5.0 acres out of block 13, and 1.64 acres out of block 14, Stewart Place subdivision, survey 298, located on the south side of Business 83 between Altas Palmas Road and Baker Potts Road. Applicant is Charles Watkins and the city of Harlingen.
Mayor Pro Tem, the Commissioners, this rezoning request originated as a result of an applicant requesting to rezone the subject property, a little over about 3.5 acre tract to general retail district. Rather than just zone this property to general retail district, we included a larger rezoning to formulate a recommendation. This is consistent with a comprehensive plan. Subject properties are currently not designated. We're generally rezoning these properties to what they're currently being used as. This one on the corner has a mixed use. It has a single family residence and it has a business mechanic shop in the rear. This one is a proposed car wash. I believe there's apartments in the rear. This is a vacant tract of land which the applicant does have plans in the future to develop it to commercial and multifamily in the rear. And I believe this also has a mixed use of residential and some commercial use in the property. The request is generally consistent with the future land use map, which shows this area as general retail. Staff and P&Z Commission are recommending approval of the request.
Same questions. That's in my district, and I know in the corner is a mechanic shop.
Right.
And I can't remember if there was used to be an auto, they used to hold cars there. I can't remember what they call them. They go recover vehicles because you haven't paid for them. So is it all the same owner now?
These two tracts are owned by the same owner, and these two properties and this one are separate.
Okay. So at the corner, I believe that used to be Altas Palmas, the vet. Is that what's at that corner?
This one, this right here is the vet.
Across the street. Okay. Okay. What's on this other corner then?
This corner?
The west corner. That one.
This one, there is a single-family residence. It looks like it does have a commercial use because they have a sign on the property.
That's what I was gonna ask you. So if we zone this commercial,
Right.
is that gonna impact the existing house, or is that grandfathered until they decide to do something different with the property?
A house is permitted in the general retail district, so it wouldn't affect the property at all.
Okay.
We also, prior to initiating this city initiative rezoning request, we did notify the property owners about the proposed city initiative rezoning. We didn't receive any objections to the request, and then we also re-notified them again as well to the property owners within a 200-foot radius, and again, staff didn't receive any objections to the request.
No.
We have that request.
We're gonna have
Yeah, we'll have a public hearing. So this kind of follows what we've been keeping asking. Let's take a strip and let's get it all consistent.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to open up the
No more
public hearing.
questions?
This item, is there anybody who would like to speak for or against this item? Please step forward and identify yourself.
My name is Reverend Richard Duhamel. That little building on the corner of, on the west side of Altus Palmas on Business 83, I built that building. It was, when I built it, it was a commercial. I was in the home construction and I had a paint store. I sold that. I built houses south of there. One of them belongs to Patsy Patterson. She was not notified on this deal. My son-in-law owns that mobile home one. He was not notified. I own the rest of it, the 6.5 acres. I was not notified. Now what's this going to do to our property? Right? Is it going to raise the value of our property? Is it going to devaluate the property? Because when we brought it out there, we liked privacy. Okay? We liked the country. And from what I understand, it's going to be zoned GR, am I correct? Is that what it's going to be zoned for?
That's correct.
General real estate?
General retail.
General retail, right? What's going in there? What's he planning on putting in? I understand it's housing. Housing development. Am I correct?
They haven't told us what the use.
I think it's a housing development, this is what I hear. And I don't want to, years back, I have a jacuzzi behind my house, right? And of course there's nothing behind the house. And we used to enjoy going in the jacuzzi naked, okay? So now, is this going to change that? Am I gonna have to worry about these people behind me? Am I gonna be offending somebody? I mean, come on, guys. You can tell I'm not used to speaking to intelligent grown-ups, okay? I'm used to speaking to these juveniles that are locked up. There's a lot of questions that I have. Is it gonna degrade my property? Because now, what's he gonna put in, Section 8 maybe? We don't know. That's going to degrade my property. We're not going to have the privacy. Why weren't we notified? I mean, there's so many things. My son-in-law has that property where it's darkened in. He was never notified. Now, is he going to be paying more taxes? Is the tax rate going to go up, or is it going to go down? Anybody answer that?
Did we send notices to the surrounding area?
We did notify the property owners within a 200-foot radius prior, like I said, prior to initiating the rezoning. We did notify these, there's about 4 property owners about the request. All of these within a 200-foot radius per the county appraisal district received a letter.
Well, I hate to tell you this,
That dotted line,
we were not notified.
Right, correct. And for the record, during the public hearing, there was no comments from property owners.
Right. She was out of town. She was in the hill country, and I was out of town. My son-in-law was working. He's the manager over one of the restaurants in town, and he has not received anything. So don't say you contacted everybody, because that's a lie.
We did contact them through the appraisal district.
We were not contacted. If we would have been made sure we would have been in town. So, gentlemen, these are questions that I'd like to have some answers to. If it's not going to affect my
And just to answer his question, it's not going to affect the value of his property for the appraisal district. It's affected how the land is developed, so it's not going to affect his property. It's only affect the properties that are being zoned as a.
Can you show us where Reverend Duhamel's properties are?
His property, I believe, is in this area right here.
Go back to the other map, I think it's easier to show.
Yeah, right there. That's probably this slide here.
See where the, he's south of that black box.
Right, we're only zoning the properties in this dark line here, which are about 4 or 5 tracks. It's not, we're not zoning these properties outside the, within the dotted line.
Look, that is within a 200-foot
Right. that's
area, and we were supposed to be notified.
right. We did notify for you.
You did not notify me. You call me a liar?
But we don't want to
You call me
be.
a liar? No, my wife a
Reverend
liar?
Duhamel, where exactly is your property, as far as your residence, where you live?
My residence is right here,
Okay.
okay? My son-in-law's here. Patsy's right here. We weren't notified.
The method that we use is a mail?
That for the appraisal district, we did get about 2 or 3 calls regarding the rezoning request, but neither the property owners had any objections to the request. So they did get letters, at least per the appraisal district. I can't speak if you didn't receive
We
a letter.
didn't receive
but we
one.
sent it out for the appraisal
When,
district.
that's the question, when
When-
you say.
when Patsy got
when you
back, she
say
did
per
find
the
one.
Appraisal district, does the appraisal district send them out? Or do you send them out? Does the city send them out? And we use the appraisal district identification
Right,
of the
correct. We
property
sent them out,
owner
we
and
sent
the
them out for
address.
the appraisal district tax rolls, whatever it shows as a property owner.
Okay, and do you send these out just regular mail or certified or
regular
return receipt or
We just
anything?
do regular mail.
And we didn't receive any of them.
Am I allowed to ask him questions? He can respond during a public hearing?
I believe so.
Okay. Just simple question. You asked a question, but if, because that's one thing I didn't hear, is what the intent of using the property was for. I just know it's gonna be general retail, so in my mind, general retail means we're gonna put some stores along,
Stores, right,
and that's
yeah.
normal for that. I mean, I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate also. I mean, that is Business 83, and Business 83 is not, at this point, you have the railroad on one side, and most of the other side is our businesses.
It's residential homes.
But it's mixed. I mean, you have lots of businesses along there also.
On the south side of Business 83, you have a mobile home that's a car wash and a barber shop. And then directly on the corner, you have the gentleman that has a garage that works on cars.
Right, but I mean,
And then on the other corner, it's home health.
which used to be the Altus Palmas
Animal hospital.
But what I'm saying is, I mean, that is a 55 speed limit thoroughfare. It's not a
Correct.
20 or 30 in a
Correct.
typical
55.
residential. And I respect, I've been to your home before, I've spoken to you, and so I know exactly where you live. And I understand that y'all are back there because you want to have some privacy.
Not only that, but we have animals too.
Yes, yeah. But here's my question. If they were to answer you and tell you this is going to be used to put in strip centers, and the intent is use the front for that and the back for residences, because what I understand is it's the front that he's really after, not the back part, because I heard Joel say something about something in the front and then homes in the back. If that was the case, would you be opposed to it?
If they wouldn't come all the way back, we'll say, to go back to the, where the first, where the car wash is, and that strip like that in that line.
Okay, so now, I'm gonna buy the property, it's an N, and I'm gonna have him put it as an R for residential, or I'm gonna have him put it in there as the, what was the other one, M for multi-family? And now I'm gonna put in apartments back there. Would you be opposed to that?
Yes. For the simple reason, how many times are police gonna come out there with the donkeys going, and my horse is running around, and we get goats and sheep and everything? How many complaints are we gonna have?
And if I put just regular homes?
Probably the same thing, right?
That's why I'm asking you. And so you're basically, you know, we're looking at this and you're saying no matter what we use the property for, except vacant property, you're gonna be opposed to it.
If it was up towards the road and not taking in.
Yeah, but there's a lot of empty land back there.
Yeah, I used to own it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make sure that we're clear that, you know, I respect what you're saying, but at some point in time, somebody's gonna wanna develop that land.
All right, when I owned it, Mrs. Morgan, Colonel Morgan's husband, he's the one that opened the base and closed the base. I bought the property from her, not with the house that Mr. Watkins owned. And he wouldn't purchase the property unless the 3.5 acres went with it because he wanted it for farming. I paid $1,500 for the 3.5 acres. And I gave it back to her because it was going to be used for farming, okay? And now, come to find out, what are we going to have? Are we going to have Section 8?
Right.
It's not zoned for that. It's zoned for general retail, right? So evidently, it's wrong. The classification is wrong. And that's one of our main deals, and what's it gonna do to our property? If you get Section 8 housing over there, you know, there goes the value. Crime, you know, police calls out there, which the department is understaffed to begin with.
Is there any intent to make it Section 8 housing?
We don't know. I don't know.
Who's
We
Mr.
understand.
Watkins?
We understand it's apartments.
And that's what my point is, you know, if I bought a piece of property and I came in front of the city commission and I'm gonna say I'm gonna build apartments, and I don't have to define whether the apartment's gonna be $10,000 a month or $10 a month, it's just apartments. And I sympathize, that's what I'm saying. I do understand what you're saying, it's just like, but, so we started off with general retail only in the front. So long as it all stays vacant in the back, you're happy, but if I use it to develop a house, or if I put I can put a huge single-family dwelling there, and, you know, you're not gonna be happy with my...
But then again, you can't, because it's not rated for that.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, right? Well, right now, it has no description, which means if I buy it, I have to classify it.
But it's going for GR, general
Right
retail.
now, right now, correct.
But appreciate your comments,
Yes, sir.
Reverend Duhau. I think they get a full appreciation of your position on that. So I'm gonna see if there's anybody else that has any comments.
I'd like to make one other deal. I appreciate Mr. Castillo, Mr. Sanchez, and Mr. Leal in regards to the abolishing that position. I don't know if you read it or not. There was a poll in the Valley Morning Star. 80% of the people were against hiring. And I just want to let you know that. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anybody else that has any comments for or against this item?
I have a property out there, and I know where he lives, because he's kind of like my neighbor, but his is city, and I'm already in county, maybe 2 blocks. The property out there is,
You don't live in the city?
well, wait a minute, you want to, but I use the street. I can't fly, I'm not an airplane, not yet, I got my pilot license, and nobody has not said anything about the traffic out there. There's enough traffic out there with the buses and stuff that would kill you. And nobody has mentioned the traffic, Mr. Reverend. Nobody has mentioned the traffic. It is a hazard out there. When I get my airplane license, I will give you a call.
I think, Ms. Castillo, I think we need to table these and give some more information on that.
Well, I mean, I think that's the wish of the commission.
What's the standard notification period? I mean, Mr. Duhamel and his neighbors are now apprised of the situation, whereas whether or not they got the letter or not, I don't know. But now they're apprised of it. The typical waiting period is how long?
The typical.
I mean, we've already had the P and Z meeting, right?
Right. Well, generally, the rezoning process takes 6 weeks to complete, so that's
I have a comment for those who live out in the country but live within the city limits. As Harlingen grows, your backyard of 15 or 20 acres that you don't own sooner or later is going to be occupied. Whether it's tall buildings or residential or general retail or whatever. That's the positive and the negative of the city growing. And once somebody buys a piece of property and it's zoned properly, then individual property rights guaranteed under the Constitution of the U.S. allow that person to use that land for what it is zoned for.
I have one question for the attorney, for our attorney. We had a public hearing right now open. I understand there may be a motion to table for right now. Do we need to close the public hearing?
Close the public hearing. If there's not any other comment, I close the public hearing.
Are there any other comments
And call for the question.
for or against this item at this point? With that said, I'm going to close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the commission?
I'd like to make a motion at this point that we just pass on this item, we table the item until the next meeting, until we can sit with staff and we can sort through some of this out and make sure that we put some wisdom into this decision. I think there's I've said that.
There was a motion and a second. All those in favor of tabling the item? Say
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes to table the item. So staff will, I think you obviously understand what some of the questions are and the concerns, so we'll be following up on that. Moving on to item number 10, public hearing to consider an ordinance on, no, we tabled 9.
We tabled 9 already.
9's been tabled.
Yeah, get to number 10.
Move to 10.
Okay, I'm confused.
It's one of the few times I was correct on the agenda.
Confused.
You did.
Going on to item number 10, public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading for the renewal of a specific use permit issued to Salvin R. Garcia to allow a bar lounge in the general retail GR district located at 209 South C Street, bearing the legal description of Lot 1, Block 67, Harlingen Original Town Site, applicant Salvin R. Garcia.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, the applicant is requesting the renewal of his specific use permit to continue to allow his bar lounge is located at the corner of C Street and Van Buren Avenue, which is this subject property here. This is a subject bar, you can see it's at the corner of Van Buren and C Street. Generally, when this got approved, a 6-month review was required for this establishment. That 6 months didn't take place, so staff has been working with the applicant to renew his permit. The request was reviewed by the appropriate city departments. None of the departments had any objections to the renewal of the permit. Police report was also provided for the establishment for the last 2 years. And within the last 2 years, he had 7 incidents which triggered a police report. He's not changing any the operations to his establishment. Is continuing to run the exact same bar lounge. The hours of operation are going to remain the same from Monday to Sunday from 12 noon to 2 a.m. We notified that the property owners within a 200-foot radius. Staff didn't receive any objections to the request. We did receive one call from one property owner who stated that he had no objections to the proposed bar lounge, so long as the applicant wasn't expanding the bar lounge, which he isn't. Public hearing was conducted by the P&Z Commission. Staff and P&Z Commission are recommending approval subject to the applicant continuing to maintain his KBC permits, continue to provide park lighting and surveillance video with 30-day retention video. We just have lights here and then here, and he has to bring the surveillance camera here in the property, as well as he's got to, again, comply with the requirements from the appropriate city departments. I'll take any questions from you.
Do we check to make sure they have the 30 days of surveillance video?
The police department checks that.
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
The police department checks that.
I noticed that one of the commissioners on the P&Z made a request that there at least be a partial sign
Right.
to indicate that this is an open commercial business.
Right,
I make that a condition of the SUP continuance.
that can be included in the ordinance, although the applicant stated that he is going to put a sign on the
And
property.
did he say that he would be willing to do that?
He said he would be willing to do that.
We can include it though, can't we?
Yes.
I'm going to open up the public hearing on this item. Is there anybody who would like to speak for or against this item?
For the record, Jose Rubio Jr., 23 I in the road. You asked about a sign. A lot of these businesses, are scared to put up a sign. What you're doing with those Mexican bars is wrong, because what you're giving them a specific permit for a few months, 6 months period, while you give some other bars preferential treatment, and you give them permanent specific use permits. And I want to tell you, as a police officer, knowing the regulations, as a retired police officer, knowing the regulations of the TABC, etc., any bar can be declared a nuisance. All you got to do is get the police permit to follow up. That's it, plain and simple. That's the way it works. Now, Mr. Uhorn, you asked a good question about who monitors. Well, planning and zoning says that they monitor the video. I don't think anyone's monitoring. I think if you were to ask the chief of police today when he comes up to the podium, if they've ever monitored any video, I think he's going to say no, because we don't have the manpower, and planning and zoning doesn't have the manpower. So we're asking for something ridiculous. Thank you. Oh, for the record, I am in favor of the specific permit being issued, but no more. Let the chips fall where they fall.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this item?
Yolanda Shopping, Post Office Box 617 here in Harlingen. We have plenty of bars. A lot of people don't like bars, but it's a business. And they're monitored by the planning and zoning, should be monitored by the planning and zoning. You put the cameras, you put this, you put that, you put that. The only problem is there's discrimination, plain down the line. Mexican Americans get one law, and the white Anglo get another one. Downright discrimination. And it's going to take a lawsuit.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this item? There being none, I'm going to close the public hearing.
An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance number 0-27 of the City of Harlingen to issue the renewal of the specific use permit to Sullivan R. Garcia to allow for a bar, lounge, and a general retail district located at 209 South 6th Street, bearing a legal description of Lot 1, Block 67, Harlingen original town site, subject to 1, providing a licensed security guard during peak hours of operation, Thursday through Saturday from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., 2, providing surveillance video with a 30-day retention of the video, 3, providing sufficient lighting inside and outside the building, 4, maintaining their TABC license, 5, must pass a fire inspection. And do you want to amend to add a sign?
I would like to amend to add a sign.
Okay. Then we'll make that 6, and it'll be added before the second reading to add a sign to the facility. And 7, comply with the requirements administered by the planning and zoning, building inspections, fire prevention, police, and environmental health departments, providing for publication and ordaining other matters related to the foregoing.
Can I ask Joel a question?
Yes.
Why is it that we do the SUP for 6 months?
Actually, this one, when it was approved, it was in the La Placita district, the overlay district, and at that time, they had a requirement that any bar in that district required, or even the Jackson Street district required, that they could only be approved for no longer than 1 year, and they'd have to come back for renewal. Since then, it's not in the district anymore, but at that time it was, so that's why the commission at that time approved it for 6 months at that time.
And may I ask, and in the past when we've done 6 months, it's usually because, correct me if I'm wrong, it's usually because there was a question about...
Usually may have been a concern about the incidents of the establishment.
And usually it was incidents.
Right.
Okay. And this one that we're passing right now, it's a permanent?
It's permanent, correct.
It is a permanent, right?
Right.
There is no 6-month attached to this.
Right.
Move on to item.
With that being said, I'll make a motion that we,
Yeah, let me read, going on to item 10B, consider take action to approve and adopt an ordinance on first reading for the renewal of a specific use permit for the above described properties.
so moved then.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Going on to item number 11, public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading to amend the City of Harlingen zoning ordinance number 07-27, sections sections 12.04 and 12.06 to establish a process which would allow pennants at new and used car dealerships and businesses which have an outdoor display of outdoor merchandise in an area no less than 2 acres.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, this item was drafted to clarify the use of pennant signs, which are basically these signs here. Technically, there is no provision in the sign regulations which allows or disallows pennant signs, or there's a provision states which it's not expressly permitted in the ordinance, and technically it's not allowed. Staff had also received some inquiries regarding these signs. Staff had been working with the P&Z Commission. What is recommended, which is on your attached ordinance, is to allow these type of signs for all new and used car dealerships without a permit, as well as for businesses which have an outdoor display of outdoor merchandise on a property that's no less than 2 acres of property or display area, excuse me. And generally, the reason we include specifically the car dealerships, because that's generally where you see these type of signs. Just to give you an example, you see them like throughout the valley, like in West Coast, Edinburgh, McAllen, Corpus, in Harlingen. So generally that's where you see them in car dealerships. So this would also restrict these signs to those type of uses and allow them to use those type of pennant signs without a permit. It would also help them, I guess, reduce as well as restricting, it would help reduce the clutter in these type of signs where they wouldn't be allowed to all types of businesses. I think there's going to be a little short video on signage.
Signs tell us much about the character of a community too. Outdoor signs are important because they give us direction and needed information. A business sign can be colorful, decorative, even distinguished. All too often, however, signs are oversized, poorly planned, and badly located. They're also too numerous. So what's wrong with this picture? 3 things. It's ugly, it's expensive, and it doesn't work. Signs project the image of a community faster than almost anything else. These are before and after pictures of the same place. Think about the images the signs project. Do you want the image of your community to be classy or trashy, tacky or plain, special or ordinary, ugly or beautiful? When you look at this shopping center in Highlands, North Carolina, does it make you want to live there? When you see the sign in this other town, do you feel like you'd like to vacation here? Image is fundamentally important to the economic well-being of our communities. This is obviously a community that didn't pay attention to its image. On the other hand, communities that get more investment, more business, and more visitors pay attention to their appearance. Another aspect of signs is effectiveness. Imagine one store owner getting a big sign, then a competitor getting a bigger sign, then a third person getting an even bigger sign. Before you know it, you'd be advertising to airplanes instead of people. A cluttered commercial strip with huge signs, flags, and banners like this is ineffective because they prevent you from finding what you're looking for. It's almost impossible to absorb the overload of information on a cluttered commercial strip like this. But when you turn down the volume, every voice becomes distinct. In short, businesses do a better job of selling because people can see what they're looking for.
Just to add, even though we're restricting these type of pennant signs, we still allow banner signs, which are 8 square feet without a permit. We also allow inflatable signs for 30 days, 4 times per year. We also allow those feather flags or wind flags. So there's other signs that are still allowed in the city, some with or without permits. So, of course, the whole concept is to preserve the positive image and reduce the cluttering of signs as shown on this presentation. The staff and P&Z Commission recommended approval subject to the ordinance.
Why the 2 acres?
2 acres, P&Z Commission felt that we had to restrict it to a certain acreage, and generally looked around some of the businesses which had, the size of it, took an average of which were the average size business that had outdoor displays, and that's generally what we came up with, 2 acres. The intent is to try to restrict them as much as you can. Because
That's their whole footprint then, the 2 acres, like Bird Ogden, Toyota downtown, they would qualify for that, their lots would?
They would, actually wouldn't, the 2 acres wouldn't apply to car dealerships, it would only apply to other businesses that sell
So
outdoor
any
cars.
car dealership, used or new?
Right. We didn't restrict it to car dealerships because there's some car dealerships that, specifically the used car dealerships, that are only like half an acre or even smaller than that, so they wouldn't be allowed to do it, so we didn't include the car dealerships in the acreage. It's only.
There's a lot of car lots where they don't qualify with the 2 acres.
Right.
What's gonna happen? They're gonna.
Actually,
You're saying that they do qualify?
They do, we didn't restrict it to car dealerships, that acreage.
So any car dealership, whether it be a single lot or take a whole city block,
Right.
they're in compliance.
Right.
I understand part of this was also at one point in time, like we have a Bass Pro Shop, they put their boats all over the parking lot.
Right.
And so that would be this outdoor display of merchandise.
Right, correct.
How big is Bass Pro Shop?
Their acreage is about 7 acres.
Okay, so they would not qualify, is that correct?
They would qualify because they're over 2 acres.
Oh, they have to be over 2 acres?
Right.
I understand the other way,
Right.
greater than 2 acres. Okay.
Let me open up the public hearing on this item. Is there anybody who would like to speak for or against this item?
For the record, Jose Rubio Jr., 2309 Hacienda Road. Well, I just want to make sure that I'm clarified on this because this is one of those, we've debated this sign ordinance over and over. So I'm going down the street on F Street and Molina's has a small little car dealership.
Right.
Is he allowed those flags?
He would be allowed those flags.
Okay. I just want to make sure, Commissioner Sanchez, that you're aware that, that a lot of F Street, people, especially with some of those flags, et cetera. Remember a conversation a few months ago with a lady at Control who said that code enforcement came around and scared the hell out of her and said that it would be a $2,000 fine if she put up those flags. So, I just want to make sure that we're really squared away on the thing because it affects a lot of Hispanic businesses. And most businesses, are less than 2 acres. Thank you. And I am for the...
That's what I say, but they qualify.
The car lots do. It's just the other,
Right.
like RB Newhouse in Weslaco. They're not selling cars, but they're bigger than 2 acres, so
Right.
they could put the pennants.
Right.
And that's what I was going to ask. We have golf cart dealerships here in town now. We have motorcycle dealerships. Is that considered?
No.
No.
It has to be automobile.
Right.
Okay.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this item? There being none, close the public hearing.
An ordinance amending the City of Arlington zoning ordinance number 07-27, sections 12.04 and 12.06 to establish a process which will allow tenants at new and used car dealerships and at businesses which have an outdoor display area not less than 2 acres, providing for publication and ordaining other matters related to the foregoing.
Moving on to item number 11B, consider take action to approve and adopt an ordinance on first reading, amending the zoning ordinance number 07-27, sections 12.04 and 12.06 to establish a process which would allow tenants at new and used car dealerships and businesses which have an outdoor display of outdoor merchandise in an area no less than 2 acres. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion so we can vote.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
There's a motion and a second.
My vote is
Discussion?
I'm not agree with this.
I'm not sure whether the video we just watched
Yeah,
was
I don't
for
know
this or against this.
When you, like Mr. Rubio said right now about the flags they put outside on the restaurants and whatnot, I don't know why they don't allow that. And I mean, this is ridiculous. We cannot.
If we can ask Joel maybe another question. So there's a request for this from car dealerships?
It is it came a request from staff because we did receive some inquiries from some businesses regarding this, and since we don't have a provision in the ordinance that allows them or disallows them, the staff felt it was necessary to put this on to amend the ordinance to clarify it so the businesses, some of the businesses can have.
But you recommended for it?
We recommended for it, correct.
And they also charge for it if they want to put any flags or something like that outside, right?
Actually, for this commission, there would be no permit fee, and all car dealerships would be allowed to have these type of signs on there. So there would be no permit fee for these type of signs. Not for car dealerships. So all car dealerships, whether it's a new or used, could have these type of signs without a permit.
Any size?
Any size.
Is it proper for me to say anything?
Well, yeah,
Well, I mean, my understanding
right
was, it's a discussion, my understanding is that this was created so that we can say this exclusive type of business is allowed to do this, but no other business is allowed. So that way, if somebody came in from, I grew up we had a drive-through hamburger stand, like the old Whataburgers, and we used to hang those banners from the front sign back to the restaurant. And so people would drive by and see the flags and pull in, and we'd go running out there and serve them, take their order, take them a hamburger, and they sat in the car and ate it. And so I'm familiar with it. And then I remember, as long as I can live, we were next to a Cardenas Motors in Brownsville. And so they put those signs up. My understanding for this is to allow them to continue, but not to allow some restaurant to say, well, I want to do the same thing. And so I'm not sure what Mr. Sanchez is referring to with Joe brought something up, but something about on F Street, there are a lot of used car dealers there, and they would be able to do that.
You know why? Because why I say that, because it's about 80% of the Mexican restaurants, they're not allowed to put any flags on it. Come on. Again.
Well, I'd say, it's restaurants are not allowed to put up flags.
That is correct.
Why?
Actually, they wouldn't be allowed these pennant signs, but they are allowed to put flags, wind flags, or banners on their property. They are permitted to do that with a permit.
But I understand the wind flags require a permit. They have to be permanently mounted.
They don't.
They don't?
They do require a permit, but they don't have to be permanently mounted. The banners are allowed without a permit, so long as it's 80 square feet or less. Those don't require a permit.
Is there any way to do this sort of as a temporary nature to see how it goes?
Sure.
I think one other, I know this opens up a whole other discussion.
Please.
Yes.
I mean, when we talk about, like,
You got a restaurant.
let me finish what I'm saying first, and then you'll get the opportunity to say something. I think maybe what is emerging in my mind right now is, I think, sort of what Commissioner Sanchez is pointing to, is that we're going to select, I guess, certain types of businesses that would be exempted from paying something for a permit, and would be allowed to get those types of permits. But I think maybe the concern is what about other types of businesses that are not car lots? Because in the whole area of us considering car lots, where it doesn't matter whether they're, like you mentioned, a half acre, quarter acre, or 5 acres, they're exempted from having to pay for the privilege to advertise their business. So that sort of opens up the whole other thing.
Well, not only, the way the ordinance is written, the way I understand it, the only people allowed to do this, there is no permit. The only people allowed to put the banners, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the only people allowed to put banners up are going to be car lots, or those that have greater than 2 acres and have outdoor display. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
That's correct for pennant signs, but not for banners.
No, we're talking about pennant signs.
Okay, pennant signs.
All we're talking about these little flag streamers.
The scientist in me is just curious. I know no studies have ever been done of parallel car lots, one with pendants and one without, who has the greater sales. or the inflatable gorillas. How much does that improve business? The whole thing's absurd.
I think it works well when you're the only one with pennants, but as soon as your competitor puts up pennants, you're back to even.
I don't understand where you get all these ideas. You go to Houston, you go to Macallan, you go everywhere you go. I mean,
I think the question is, or the answer, the question and the answer. The answer first is, as Joel said, we have a sign ordinance, and there are many vehicles or types of different signs that you can put up for your businesses. You can put up pole signs, you can put up signs on the side of the building. You are allowed to have temporary banners. You are now allowed to have wind flags out in front of your business. So that there's many ways for businesses to advertise that they're there and to be able to attract customers in there. All we're saying is there has never been anything in the ordinance that specifically addresses just these pennant flags. And we've had people come in and they've said, why isn't there something in here? Show me in black and white in writing that I can't do this or that I can do it, and who can do it and who can't do it. A couple of years ago, we brought this before the City Commission, and the whole thing came up with the car dealers, and they should be able to do that because they traditionally do it throughout the whole country. But do we really want these pennant flags allowed in front of every commercial establishment or business or commercial strip center or every little tiny store in town? The reason for showing you that video is visualize Harlingen with pennant flags in front of every business. Is that what we want? I don't think so. Can those businesses still advertise and put up signs and be able to get customers in there without putting up pennant flags? Of course they can. Do we have a lot of pennant flags up in front of these commercial buildings now? Very few, but they're starting to gather up on more and more locations around town. So the concern is that if they start to show up all over every place, is that really the image that you want to have? I mean, we're doing a comprehensive plan. We're trying to clean up the city. We're trying to make it look better when you drive in. You saw the video. Do you want to drive into what you saw on some of those streets? And let's face it, when you drive around Harlingen, you see some of that right now. The purpose of a sign is to be able to find the business. That's the real purpose of it. When you drive up and down the street in your car, do you look 50 feet up in the air to find out how to go to the store? On the freeway, yes, we allow those kinds of signs out there. I think this is simply just to try to allow what has always been there traditionally for the car dealerships, for the John Deere places, for the boat displays at the Bass Pro, for the businesses that utilize that kind of thing. We're not trying to stop small businesses on F Street from being able to have signage and stuff. We're just saying that the only thing you can't do is have a lot of little pennant flags and streamers out there up and down the whole street, because you already have signs to be able to find your way into the business. And if we want to improve the image of the city, you know, this is just a small step moving in that direction. We do have a comprehensive plan coming up where we can take a look at the bigger issue of the whole sign ordinance if we want to. So
you view it more as a restrictive thing by just limiting it to these types of businesses?
Yeah. Or because I've been talking to you for a month now about this,
right?
And I'm almost like a rabid dog about it. Or we can go the opposite way and say we don't want these signs at all.
You can.
And that way, if you see them, it's easier to identify who should and who shouldn't, because they shouldn't have them at all. And if we're looking to clean up our image and have our city look like some of those places that are in resort areas, we can just say, we're not going to have these flags at all. I know that I approached the chamber and said, you know, as a chamber, I'm mixed here. You know, half of me says I have to have my freedom as a business owner. And so I approached the chamber. I said, you know, y'all need to think about this, because we're going to impact the way a business is able to express itself. But at the same time, how do we want to express ourselves as a community? And so I got to put the other hat on and look at it and go, is enough enough? Because I mean, we're all politicians. We put signs out every couple of years. Yeah, I know. And you know, it got to be almost embarrassing to go to the annex building. You were going through a gauntlet because the signs were on both sides. I mean, how many times does a guy have to put his sign out there to vote for me? And there was a letter to the editor in the paper this week that addressed that issue because it says 10 days we're supposed to take them down. And he was very respectful to the fact that, you know, we got to get, people need to know who we are, but at the same time, when is enough enough? And so, you know, my take on the whole thing is I don't think we should be discriminatory. So if we're going to discriminate against everybody other than auto dealers, we should discriminate against everybody. It's either we're going to allow the pennant signs or we're not going to allow the pennant signs. That's where I go. I have a hard time telling Commissioner Sanchez here that Sanchez Tire Shop on the corner, he's got a beautiful, you know, little corner place painted orange, and he has a place to put banners, and he can't do it. But across the street is a used car dealership, and he's got all of his banners, and it looks, I mean, he's done it professionally. It looks nice. But the guy across the street at the tire shop can't do it now. And so, you know, to me, it's very hard to tell somebody, well, you know, because you're not a car dealer, because you don't have 2 acres, you can't do it. And I have a heartburn with that. To me, that's discriminatory. So, as somebody told me earlier, it's better to be discriminatory against everyone than against one person.
I understand, Clark, what you're trying to do, but you forgot one of the more important things. These people own the property. These people are struggling to pay the tax. That's the one they pay everybody's salary. I mean, come on, you need to understand that too.
Well, my point was talking about the video was that we're adding the pennant signs. I didn't realize that we already had pennant signs.
Yeah, we already have them. I mean, we already have them, and I agree with what Commissioner Leal's saying. I mean, in the perfect world, from our standpoint, and since we're in charge of signs, I would scrap our whole sign ordinance, and I'd put a sign ordinance in place like the nice signs that you saw up there. But if we can't do something about some little bitty pennant flags because we're going to be stepping on people's toes, imagine the turmoil and the controversy that trying to scrap the whole sign ordinance and start over again and tell everybody that they're going to have to do
I'm a
it
lot
that
more
way.
in favor of it if what we're trying to do is restrict, if that's the intent, is to restrict these to where we don't get more of them. And they've traditionally been using them.
The only reason
I kind of view that as step one to maybe getting rid of them.
You hit the nail on the head. That's the only reason we're here tonight with that. That's exactly the reason. And I mean, I agree with Commissioner Leal. If we want to say that nobody can have them, that's fine. But what's the problem is car dealers have always had them. These other businesses haven't always had them. I mean, we've had very few pennant flags around this town, and now all of a sudden they're starting to pop up. So if we can restrict it now to keep it from spreading more, and we can do it in a courteous manner where we give people a period of time to comply and don't say, you know, you have to take them down right away. Give them 6 months, give them 8 months, whatever. But at least we're not going to see more of them out there. And I don't think anybody can argue that pennant flags over the whole city on every commercial spot is going to look like what that video looked like.
Why we can leave everybody to put it at the flags? I mean,
Well, Commissioner, I think at the end of the day, this board sets policy, and, you know, we'll certainly follow that policy. I think what we were trying to do is have a balanced approach.
those policies, we do it over here.
Well,
I mean, come on.
and that's why we're here, so we can discuss this issue, this board can set the policy, and then we can move forward.
Let me just interject a little bit something here so we can sort of.
Well, I think we have a resident that would like to speak, and I'd like to recognize her.
But yes, and we don't want to forget that. But I just want to say one thing about staff. I mean, they always get caught in the middle of these hot button issues. I'm sort of familiar with that kind of a scenario. But in all fairness to staff, they're trying to accomplish what we as a community are trying to do. So, I mean, let's not shoot the messenger here. They're trying to do a good job. It'll be our job. Tonight, I don't have a vote, but it'll be you guys to decide what direction you want to go on this. And that's why we're here. Then we vote. But I do want to recognize the person that wanted to give a comment.
Good evening, my name is Francis Delio, and I live at 1217 East Brewery. What Mr. Sanchez is saying about these flags here, they're all over in every city. Why are they trying to take them out here from small businesses? I have a small business, and that really helped me. And let me tell you, they're cheaper. Why would people have to go out and get signs when they're more expensive? And then you have to have a permit, and you have to have this. There's a lot of requirements. Why don't you leave these business people alone? They're small businesses, and they're struggling. And this city keeps putting more and more policies. And they're the ones that elected you all here. A lot of these businesses, a lot of these people that went into these businesses elected you all to help them, not to put them down. They're trying to make money and they pay taxes. Why don't you all leave them alone? I think that Mr. Superman here is the one with the idea of taking them out. Well, I know there's a lot of them around, but not too many. You know, some people like them and some don't. Some can afford signs and some can't. And those flags are the most important. I mean, they're cheap. You can afford to put them. And believe you me, like he says, they'll come in and they can find you. Oh no, I used to give a lot of directions and say, you see the little flags out there? That's where I'm at. So it's important for you all to make good decisions. You're here to help the people, not to run them out of town or run them out of business because somebody has an idea. I don't think that's right. Put a vote to it. Ask all the business people. Why don't you go around asking everybody that has a small business? Not everybody can have a business that's too real big, that has 2 acres or 3 acres. Not everybody can afford that. But they surely can afford those flags. But sometimes they cannot afford a sign. They're expensive. I have to pay for mine $500-600 for my signs. So think about it and make the right decision. Please help the business people. Thank you.
So there's a short comment, please.
Yes, real quick. She hit it on the nail because that's what I was going to say. Part of it. You're gonna shut down. You're cutting your own throat. A lot of businesses are going to go under. This is not California. This is not New York City. This is not McAllen. These people are going to get fed up and say, the hell with fortune, and let's get the hell out of here. And that's what's happening. You're cutting your own throat. Thank you.
Okay, there was a motion and a second. I just want to say one thing. I have to agree with Commissioner Leal and Commissioner Sanchez had stated. It's a tough area to try to address. And I know from day one when the city started trying to tackle this whole issue with signage and how much is too much and who gets affected by those decisions. It's a tough answer to arrive at. And ultimately I think Commissioner Leal mentioned that we have to define for ourselves as a community what are we going to say about our own community and what we're going to do. With all that said, one of the prevailing issues is that, as far as in my mind, it's, at what point do you end up saying, well, you, because you do this kind of business, can have these types of signs, but then you guys over here that have another type of business cannot. I think that's one of the biggest heartburn issues for tonight. So, we have a motion and we have a second on 11B.
And again, I'm going to reiterate, my vote will be based whether, as written, do I accept this, because in my heart, it's discriminatory. We're saying only a certain portion of business can do this. I'm not saying that we can or can't. I'm just saying the way it's written, it says it's exclusive to these businesses. And I don't, personally, it's just my personal opinion, I don't think we should be discriminating and saying this type of business can do it. I would love it if, I'm in the computer business and we can only do certain things and no one else can. And I don't think we should be legislating how a person advertises based on their type of business.
I would say my vote would reflect the fact that I try to envision, like Ken said, you're driving down the street and every business has them going up there. And the problem that we have is when they start, it does start a little bit at a time. We've got a business in town that puts a van out with like police lights on it. You're driving along, you think there's an accident. Well, that's their advertising. Well, pretty soon, that seems to work so well, we've got 2 more of them on Business 77, and it looks like, you know, you've had a plane crash there. Where do you stop it? And to me, I think that it helps beautify the town if this is step 1, and I understand they're inexpensive, but if everybody puts them up, we look like the worst of those photographs in there. And so to me, restricting it to these types of outdoor display businesses where they have their product outside, basically. That's what you're saying. If your product's outside, you can draw attention to it. Most other businesses don't have their product outside. So I don't see it as discriminatory. I sort of see it as step 1 toward restricting these flags.
I'd be, I mean, because we have every 2-wheel vehicle and a 3-wheel vehicle cannot use these.
Right.
It seems to me that it's all or none.
Right. Well, that's outdoor equipment, isn't it?
No,
It is outdoor if they have it.
Or a display outside.
they have to have a 2-acre.
Right.
So that means if I open up a motorsports there next to the golf cart that used to be a motorsports in the old days, and it's only motorsports, I cannot put the flags up. I'm just saying, my problem with it is that it's too restrictive, or not restrictive at all. We've narrowed it down to one thing.
From staff's point of view, I guess what we're, from the direction that I'm hearing is for us to go back and basically look at it. We either do it for everybody or don't do it at all.
No,
Well,
we cannot accept that.
What's going to happen is,
We're going to have to let them that, no lights, but the flags and all that stuff, they can put it on. I mean, to me.
But I just want to make sure we have clear direction for our staff so we can come back with what the commission is.
I think we need to envision Harlingen driving down every street with flags everywhere, pennant flags everywhere.
That'd be beautiful.
Well, I think
You
for
can have red,
tonight, for
blue, green,
tonight,
everybody. If they
for
can
tonight-
pay taxes, you can let them at least have business.
for tonight, I think the vote is to decide whether or not to pass this amendment as presented. If this is not passed, then I think that the direction will come afterwards. If there's some other considerations that the commission would wish to consider. I mean, hats off to staff. I mean, I appreciate your efforts. You know, I know you're trying to do what about 300,000 people are telling you to do, and I appreciate the efforts. But I mean, there's still a vote to be taken here on the item as presented. There was a motion. There was a second.
Well, why don't we just table it? Can we table it?
Well, we have the motion.
We can table
My vote is
it.
no.
You can.
If you want me to withdraw my motion, I'll be more than happy to do that. Robert's rule allows me to do that. And so if you'd like me to, I'll be
I think
more than
that's
happy.
more appropriate if we're going to let staff look at it, and maybe we want to add some other businesses to it or talk to y'all about what we would add. But I do think it's a mistake to allow every business to put flags up all over the place.
Agreed. So you want to make the motion?
Well, you
I've
got to
withdrawn
undo, you have to amend your motion.
I've withdrawn my motion, or I'll amend my motion to say that maybe we should go back. And we've had a lot of discussion about this.
Amend your motion to
Oh,
table.
I'm going to amend my motion to table.
A second.
Okay, there's a motion to table this item. There's a second. Any more discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes to table this item. So there's some work to be done by staff.
I would like to say something. If there's 3 of you that don't agree with that, it's only Mr. Umar that's opposing to that. I believe that you should vote on it today.
But the item's already been
There's 3 of you
tabled.
that don't want it.
The item's already been tabled, so we need to move on. I mean, we've had ample discussion for tonight. I appreciate your comments, but
You cannot table it.
the motion and the item's been tabled by the vote, so move on to item number 12. With that said, I mean, staff, I think you understand some of the issues we're looking at. so-
My motion to table was strictly because it sounded like they were going to come back anyway, and mine was a procedural idea, not a.
Okay, we're done with that for tonight. So we'll move on to item number 12.
Consider take action to approve and adopt a resolution establishing the determination of a public need and necessity for the acquisition of fee simple title for, is that written correctly?
Yes.
Fee simple title for real estate located on Lamb Avenue from FM 801 at Cary west approximately 934 linear feet to the end for the construction of a new public roadway.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, City Manager. Staff has determined the need to acquire additional right-of-way to eventually construct Lamb Avenue. This access is currently used by the residents in this area for school buses, emergency vehicles. Staff is proposing a 50-foot right-of-way to eventually construct a roadway typical section there. A total of 1.16 acres have been determined that we need for this right-of-way. There is a typo in the executive summary. There is no funding, but eventually we'll get an appraisal and get a value, and then we'll budget for the right-of-way acquisition. Once we own the access, staff can go there and do repairs and maintain it. Currently, we do not do any repairs and maintenance on this access road. Staff recommends approval.
That road is pretty small and rough.
Yes, it is, just to be clear, it is not a public road. It is not a public right-of-way at all right now. What's happening is that buses and vehicles are traveling down Oklahoma Street, and the only way to get back out is to go back towards the frontage or use this makeshift road, which is private property, to access that Cary Drive, and that's what they've been doing for
So
years.
people are driving on somebody's private land?
On somebody's private property. And the other thing is, many years ago, before the city had this area, there was a home built out at the end. See where that cul-de-sac is at?
Yes.
There is no access road to that home.
That's in your district.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've driven this, and I'm like stunned to find out it's not a road.
And staff has talked to the school district about this issue because the only way for the buses to get back out of this area without coming down this makeshift road
Would be reversed.
was to go in reverse because they can't turn around. It's not wide enough. And so staff contacted the property owner, and they're pretty receptive to the idea of possibly selling the city some right-of-way. We don't have the funds to move forward and construct a full-blown roadway, but we would like to move on with the resolution to at least move forward with the appraisals and possibly acquiring that, if possible, and doing a rural section Calicia roadway, just for access, for the time being.
So if this is an impromptu road on a private property,
Yes,
private property owner's land, how does it get the name of Lamb?
We don't know. That was put up by the state, and we don't know exactly how that happened.
Google Earth, Bing Maps, everybody has it labeled as Lamb Avenue.
Yeah, go figure.
And doesn't Lamb,
Yes.
it goes all the way through to my district.
Correct.
But that's not even a dedicated road, it's
No.
just got a name.
There's not even an easement out there. And so we, staff felt that we needed to bring this before City Council. We needed to address it somehow, or at least begin the process of trying to get it addressed. And we have another area of town that's similar that we'll bring forth in the coming months. But we want to start with this one because the school buses are a big concern.
Yeah.
So there is, I would figure that there's going to be some potential shared costs, or the idea would be to try to see if the school district also helps out.
We have approached the school district about that. They're thinking about that, so we'll touch base with them again.
Good.
We've talked to the property owner who owns that, and he's agreeable to selling some of this property to us.
The next step after the resolution would be, of course, to get it appraised.
Okay. Do you have to read anything?
No, not unless it's a resolution, just call for the.
I will.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Item number 13, consider take action to authorize the mayor on behalf of the city of Harlingen to secure grant funds in the amount of $160,000 made available through the Office of Governor Criminal Justice Division under the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, known as JAG program.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, that's exactly what this, we're just asking permission to submit an application for grant funding. If we get the grant monies, we're going to use it to upgrade and replace our MDTs, our mobile data terminals inside our units. They're about 5 years old right now and they need upgrading.
Question. We voted not too long ago for like $1 million upgrade so that we're on the national emergency system, our phones and all this, and communication equipment.
The P25 compliance stuff, yes, sir.
That's what it is. So this wasn't included in that?
No, sir. This is our computer terminals that we use inside our units.
Okay.
There's various grant sources that become available through federal grant sources that are targeted for different purpose areas. This is another recurring grant source that I think historically the PD's been able to go after. It's good money that we can use for technology upgrades.
These are your laptops.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Is there a motion to pass the item?
Does he need to read the caption or not?
There's no motion on that.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you, Chief. Item number 14, consider take action to select a company for technical services for the auditorium and authorize the city manager to negotiate the best possible rate.
Thank you.
On this item, I think I'm gonna.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, we went out for, with a RFQ.
We got the commission.
On this item, I think, I talked to Gabriel. They don't give enough time for the people to come and apply. We only got one man, he applied the same one, and he want to charge the same thing that he's doing before for 19 years. I don't think it's right, so I think we better put it back again on the newspaper and announce it, because there's no way they can get the applications or anything. It's nothing, just a paper. They got it over there in the bottom. I'll find out what Gabriel. So we need some more time. It's a bunch of people they want to apply, but they don't know how.
Let's hear the presentation by the staff, and if there's a motion by the commission, we'll entertain it at that time. Joe?
Well, I was just going to kind of hit the points for you. The RFQ was issued in the Valley Morning Star on March 5th. The instructions were to have it submitted, have the submittals into the city manager's office by March 17th at 3 p.m. We had two people pick it up from the city, a gentleman by the name of Ferguson and a gentleman by the name of Kaluga. We also sent copies of the packet to the IOTSI local in Corpus Christi, which is the International Association for Stage and Theatrical Employees, and that's the stagehands union. We also sent a copy of the RFQ to World Audio in San Antonio. None of those responded. They were, as I said, they were due back in the city manager's office on the 17th. We only received, as Commissioner Sanchez pointed out, we did only receive one response to the RFQ.
So you did advertise Rio Grande Valley,
Oh, it was in the Valley
Corpus
Morning
Christi, and
Star.
San Antonio.
Yes.
But, I also asked Elvia, I think so. I asked Elvia for the request of what they paid to these men before. They say to 2012, that's all you got. 2012, 13 and 14, somebody else paying him. So I don't know how this been working. I would like to table this and make some more information and make some more advertising on this.
We're here to seek advice from the commission tonight.
But just to point out, again, you've advertised over a population of about 5.5 million people.
Well, not everybody takes the Valley Morning Star, but
well, Corpus Christi.
Right.
And I'm sure, much to your disappointment, not everybody takes the Valley Morning Star.
I don't get involved in that.
I think it's safe to say it's less than 5 million.
For clarification, I take it, for the benefit of the public, what specifically would the technical services entail? In general, what would you?
PA system.
Far more than the PA system. There is a 40-year-old lighting system in the theater that has to be taken care of. There's a 20 line set single purchase fly system. Each barber has a capacity of 750 pounds. There are some
very, very legitimate safety concerns about who operates that system. In addition to that, there is a sound system in there. There is a number of portable equipment items that are a part of our inventory and the TD is responsible for all of the operation of all of that.
And everything, all this equipment belongs to the city of Harlingen. And for a festival, they got those old ladies, non-profit organization, they make a function in there. They charge $1,000 for 2 microphones, put it in there, man. This is ridiculous.
Are you saying that the electrical equipment, the lighting, the digital, the boards, need to be run by professionals?
That's exactly
and
what
not
I'm saying.
amateurs.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Sir, everything is connection already. Everything is connection there. I mean, what do you mean to electric?
And you mentioned.
Come on, Joe. Tell me what it is.
And you mentioned that you.
We're going to ask you a question. Let's give him a chance to answer.
Okay, but you mentioned that you advertised in these are electrical unions or showbiz unions.
Well, the IATSE is the International Association of Stage and Theatrical Employees. The 604 has jurisdiction over Corpus Christi. It's a sister union of the AFL-CIO. It is nationwide. It is international. They are the pros.
Mr. Castillo, I need to table this because we need to find out more, and I'm waiting for Elvia to give me those reports. And
we're gonna entertain motions, but I have to give everybody the opportunity to.
I just want to make sure I understand. Okay. This quote is for technical services. So if I'm going to rent and use the auditorium, somebody has to operate the lights for me because our insurance. What causes them to have to have?
Because they're sophisticated.
They are sophisticated and they are not hardwired into place. Each theatrical lighting instrument moves. It has to move, and when you have smart lighting and that sort of thing, it moves during the show. Okay. So you have to have somebody that is qualified not only to physically go up there and hang the instrument, but physically patch it in at the back, run the DMX cable, do the soft patch. There are a number of steps. It's not just a matter of going in and turning on a switch.
Okay. And so, in order for me to be qualified to do that, I have to hold some sort of certificate?
You have to have a pretty unique skill set in order to do that. Most people that do this kind of thing, their background is either in theater or rock and roll.
Okay. And normally these people are part of that union?
Most of the people that work our calls at the auditorium right now under the current technical director also work the IATSE calls for 604 in McAllen, Corpus Christi, and as far west as Laredo. They just work for us when we are doing the shows in Harlingen, and we don't get billed at the union rate for them.
Okay, and so the other venues in the valley are going through this same?
I checked with the other venues in McAllen at the Civic Center and at the Convention Center. They actually use the stagehand union out of Corpus Christi. In Brownsville, they use a combination of an in-house staff and students, the student body, to do this. I will add one thing.
Yes, sir.
I have been in theater since I was 6 years old. I have never worked at a theater that did not have one individual designated as the technical director for that building.
Joe, if the city was paying this man for 19 years, why they decided not to pay the city anymore? How they get paid?
Well, Commissioner, the city doesn't pay him except when he works on city events. Other than that, the individual that is renting the building pays him directly. He doesn't invoice us, he invoices them.
So we're not providing the service, we're just providing the contact because he's the one that we've authorized to run the equipment for us.
That's exactly
Is that
right.
correct?
And when the city does have an event like the ACCS or Cinco de Mayo, and we bring him in, then he is contract labor. He's not an employee of the city. He's just contract labor.
I think it's important too to note that we have these soundboards that cost $80,000, control boards and lights and everything else. And I think it's good that we have, I don't know whether it's this individual or not, but one individual that's responsible for all of that. Because if you have multiple individuals that are coming in, moving things, breaking things, doing whatever, there's no sense of responsibility or to take care of it, because they're just there for one time. So I like the idea that we have one individual that's taking care of it and overseeing it, because they know what they're doing. I mean, there's high voltage here, there's all kinds of things. You just can't let the person that rents the auditorium, you know, turn their teenager loose on the soundboard.
Or on the fly system. I mean,
Right.
when you have 750 pounds, 60 feet in the air, and little kids walking around on the stage, there is a great potential for tragedy.
Why they charging too much?
My last question, I promise. This is an annual deal, or is this until we need to review this again? What is the terms of
This is the first time that we have done this, and so we are kind of inventing the wheel on this.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said this is the first time we've done this, so we would be sort of inventing the wheel on this. If this were something that needed to come back for annual review,
It would
which
be
I
up
don't
to
think
the
would necessarily be a bad
We
idea.
could at any point in time bring it back, review it, and put it out again.
Okay,
Because the reason I bring it in is because that we got a lot of complaints. Believe me, Joe. There's people, they say they're charging too much. That's why they don't come over here and make a choice. Because that man wants to $3,500 or $4,000 just to run the system. The system that belongs to the city. I mean, this is ridiculous. $1,000 for put two microphones in there.
Every individual that has a show in the auditorium, he meets
And you
with
know,
them, either in
I
person
know
or
everything
over
about
the telephone.
sound machines and all the stuff. I'm
Joe,
a musician too, and you know this is ridiculous.
Also,
Basically, listen, basically
excuse
the
me.
bottom line is this.
Hold on.
Joel,
Yes, sir.
as a former stagehand, behind that stage, you're what, 40, 60, 80 feet high?
About 65 in our theater.
65 in our theater, and so you don't want amateurs up there on the catwalk,
Exactly.
because after 65 feet, things don't bounce.
Right.
We don't
They
try
go
to
through
bring
rooms.
amateurs, and we try to bring engineers. They run a big systems on the same, give you the opportunities to do it.
Yes, sir.
Joel, can you go over the proposal that was submitted and the fees associated with it?
Yes, thank you.
That was going to be one of the questions I asked Carlos about, is who establishes that cost that person, whoever that person ends up being, charges for?
What he has set forth in his proposal is a base bid of 4 stagehands for 4 hours. The rate for 4 guys for 4 hours is $250 for all 4 guys for 4 hours. Now then, very often it does not take an hour to prepare for a show, 2 hours to do the show, and an hour for the restore. In many cases, it takes days to prepare for a show, or certainly all day to prepare for a show. And I have had many conversations about this as well with people that also express concern about the fact that this job is going out for the RFQ. The answer when somebody says, that's too expensive, I can't afford that, that's outside of my budget, traditionally in the theater the answer is, well then what can we cut from your show to make sure that you stay in budget? The stagehands, they work for what they work for. They don't start cutting their hourly rate. You start cutting items from the show. It happens with the Broadway touring shows. When they walk in, when their technical director walks into our theater, he will look at the road manager and he will say, we're going to cut this drop, we're going to cut this scene, we're going to cut this, we need to park those trucks down at the end of the parking lot.
Joe, did you work for the city or you work for this bid?
No, I work for the city.
Then you have to defend the city. Now, I mean, we need to bring some more shows. We need to have more musicians in there, more things like that.
That's not the discussion.
I would like to say something. I've done promotions for a long time, and let me tell you what the bottom line here is. The bottom line here is that if I do a production, I cannot bring my own sound system. My professional sound system, I cannot bring it in there. Because he has, in his capacity at the auditorium, their own professional sound system. I was shocked when he said, it's $750 an hour. I was like, wow. Munguia said that to me. Munguia is the only one that runs the sound system. I could not bring my own sound system. That's why I said, oh my God, I have this wonderful production that I'm going to do for 2 days. I'm going to give the city of Harlingen $75,000. Of course I was going to make more. I'm not going to tell you how much more. But I was going to make a killing. And I was stopped. Because I could not believe how I could not bring my own sound system, professional sound system, engineers and everything. So I said, the hell with it, out of here.
Yeah, just, Joe, I know you had a quick comment. We can move along with this item.
I'll make this quick. You know, for the last year and a half, you know, in between my illnesses, I've been talking to Joe Humphreys. I have a lot of respect for his, for what he does, and he's right. You know, and Mr. Yuhon, you're right. It's city equipment. It should be a professional. But in the RFQ, all I'm asking for, and I've talked to Mr. Humphreys about this several times. You know, I'm going to give you the professionals of Diego Productions located on Bass Boulevard. Diego Productions can come in, give me a better price without touching the sound system. All I'm doing is I want to rent the stage. I want to rent it for a comedy show. I want to rent it for a musical, you know, for some musician, etc. You know, I found everything from $500 upwards to $1,500. So if Mr. Colunga is handling the city equipment, I understand completely why Mr. Humphreys would be, you know, would worry about it. But you see, this is a taxpayer's building. This taxpayer's building has been around for years, since I was a child. So all I want on the RFQ, that's what it's going to come down to, is for an opportunity for someone just to come in and say, I've got my own light system, I've got my own insurance, I can guarantee you that I'm going to be able to put this together for you, and that's what I have found. And all I had to do was make a few phone calls. I've talked to some Brownsville engineers, I've talked to some McAllen people also. So all I would like for Mr. Llerena and the staff, Mr. Humphreys, with all due respect, is the fact that he at least entertains the idea of letting someone else come in and be cost effective. Because, you know, Mr. Colunga, what he does is, I can spend $1,500 on just bringing in the comedian, the show, the whatever, you know, etc. But it's going to cost me more money to hire Mr. Colunga. Mr. Chino Sanchez talks about $1,000 for two microphones. God, folks, that's ridiculous. You know, I mean, there's a whole lot of other ways to comply with this and help out. Now, all I'm asking for in the future is an RFQ.
I do have one, and he just opened a book. Do we allow people to bring their own sound and light?
No.
In the past, when we have had
Everybody's
shows,
talking, I can't hear it.
in the past, when we have had touring productions or shows that have come in, and they have come in completely self-contained with their own lighting package and their own sound package, they have their own technicians run that equipment. The only technician that we have on hand is the TD, there just to supervise the building. Now, we do not allow them to augment their system with our system. And one of the questions that I have had, because I have a number of people that have come in the past and said, well, I have my own PA system, why do I need to use yours? And my question invariably is, well, how are you going to see the people on stage? If they don't have a lighting package, then...
Commissioner, when we had the federales come in, they brought in their own sound system.
Yes, I know. Okay, but
So
we
it
do
does
allow, and if I'm not going to use the lights, and I'm just going to put on an event there and I have my own sound system, I'm allowed to do that. But if I want to use the lights, unless I bring my own lights, right?
Unless
I
you...
need to hire this gentleman to run the lights and only the lights for me.
Well, and if you, again, you were talking about a show, so it depends on what you want. If you don't want, if you don't need anything set up on stage, if you want a bare stage wall in back, a concrete wall and a wooden floor, and you don't require anything of the fly system, if you don't want the intercom system throughout the building, which is wired into the soundboard to work, then you can certainly use your own guy. Where we have typically drawn the line is when people want to augment the existing system that they have with our equipment.
And I understand that. When if somebody's going to tell me I'm bringing my own sound system, to me that means I'm not going to use your wires, I'm not going to use your equipment at all. I'm going to set up my own stack, I'm going to run my own snake to the back and run my own board.
Right.
And so, I mean, but that's my question. Do we or do we not allow? Because I'm getting mixed. I hear
Yes,
from...
we do.
We do allow it.
If you were to bring your own sound and lighting system into the theater, you could run it yourself.
Okay.
See, another people they come when Niños First Start, non-profit organization, they use 2 microphones and they get late to connect those microphones. They charge $2,000.
Okay, I don't know if there's anything else for us to discuss on this. We have to bring it to a vote, but I do want to respect there was a desire by Commissioner Sanchez to table. Is that still you're providing a motion, or you're giving a motion for that?
Yeah, the motion to table.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Sanchez to table this item. Is there a second? Okay, that motion dies. And going back to the item as presented, is there a motion to take action to select the company for technical services for the auditorium and authorize the city manager to negotiate the best possible rate as presented by staff?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say
My
aye.
vote is no.
Aye.
Aye.
And Commissioner Sanchez votes nay. Motion passes. Going on to item number 15, consider take action to approve a request for the renewal of a facilities usage agreement between the City of Harlingen and the Texas Youth Football Association, Harlingen Hawks, for the use of the soccer fields at the sports complex on Wilson Road.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. I'll be as brief as I can. I know you've had a long evening. 15 and 16 are actually, conveniently, we're discussing the actual same park. This is the sports complex on Wilson Road. To give you some bearings, Expressway 77 will be out here. This is Wilson Road. This is the entrance into the complex. It's an L-shaped complex. This is Gutierrez Middle School. And this is the site of the district's Performing Arts Center now. This is a dated photo, probably three years old. Item 15 is the Typha Hawks, Texas Youth Football Association Hawks. They use what some of you remember were the soccer fields at the front of that facility. They were soccer fields before we built our soccer complex. They use these two fields generally for practice. This will be like the third year of this league, and so they're asking for renewal of the contract. Specifically with regards to the contract, the only changes between previous contract and this one is that, and you'll start to see this as we cycle through these contracts, is that the city has asked the leagues to take a more, intimate role in the game day preparations and having them line the fields themselves. They can certainly do it more efficiently than we can. And so we started to negotiate those in. They've been very receptive to that. They've understood why we've asked them to do that. And so that's part of this contract. Now, football is a little bit different animal than baseball, because football and soccer, you paint actual lines on the field. And so what we discussed with Typha, now again, they generally use this for practice. They very rarely have games, maybe once a month, a couple times a month. Historically, they've played their games under a separate contract with the district at South High School. So they generally use this for practice. We will paint those lines in the first time of the season. If they need to be redone, they'll already be there, and the league can go over them and do that. Second item with regard to this contract, you'll notice that in paragraph 10, we've kind of grouped all of the contract compliance issues that we've added over the years. They've kind of been scattered about in the contract, and what brought that to mind was the last time we talked about a contract, Commissioner Sanchez brought up, hey, it's difficult for me to find this specific item. I believe it was the 990 information in the contract. So we've kind of grouped all those into a single paragraph. So none of that stuff has changed. We've just reformatted it to make it a little bit easier for the staff to administer and for the leagues to understand what it is required of them. Now, speaking of the contract compliance, this is the first year that most of these leagues have been required to do the 990, the IRS, or show us that they've done their 990, which is their IRS, their tax return for a nonprofit. And also the audited financial report, basically their financials stamped by a certified public accountant. This league has met all those requirements. Both of the leagues have, or we wouldn't have brought them to you. Both the leagues have met all of those contract compliance requirements. Parks Board looked at this last month, recommend approval unanimously. City staff recommends approval unanimously. Isabel with the league is here, been waiting patiently. If you have any questions for her, otherwise, again, staff recommends approval.
If there's no questions, is there a motion to pass the item as presented by staff?
Motion to pass it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Item number 16, consider and take action to approve the renewal of the 2014 season of a contract between the City of Harlingen and Harlingen National Bronco League, Baseball League, for the use of the ball fields at the Tom Wilson Youth Sports Park at the Sports Complex on Wilson Road.
Again, we're talking about the sports complex on Wilson Road. We were talking about these soccer fields, the previous item. The 8 fields in question are the Tom Wilson Youth Sports Complex here on the southwest side of the complex. These fields, this is our adult softball complex. This is where we run our city league, and occasionally we get rentals from private groups wanting to put tournaments on there. But these are the 8 fields. National Bronco's been there for a number of years. I don't have an exact count of how many kids they have in this league, but it may be the biggest youth league we have in the city. They vary season to season between 700 and about 1250. And so with all the uses at this park, you can tell this is probably one of the more heavily used parks that we have in the city. Again, with regards to this contract, we've grouped all the contract compliance documents together in that paragraph 10. They have met all those requirements, so they are current. With regards to striping their fields, they've agreed to do that, and that is in the contract. Now, what's different between this one, this complex has its own restroom concession facility. It's self-contained. The only folks that use it are the league. A couple of years ago, as part of the contract, the city put in the stipulation that this is, again, the reasoning being, you're the only ones, this league, that use this restroom facility. You need to start cleaning it. This year we've added on the stipulation, well, you also need to start stocking it as well with paper products. That had been something historically that the city had done. Similar to us discussing this, the lining of the fields with the leagues, we negotiated with this with them. They were very receptive to it. They understand why we were asking, and they're happy to do it. So in so much as that, Parks Board heard kind of this same thing, unanimously recommend approval to you, as does staff. I'll take any questions.
Is there a motion to pass the item as presented by staff?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. On to item number 17. We're there on this. Board appointments. Any board appointments?
None.
There being none, we are not going to entertain item number 18. Citizen communication, there's some.
I have Margarita Lopez.
Next.
David Alex.
I think he left.
Joe Rubio.
Okay, for the record again, Jose Luis Jr., 23rd and Hacienda Road. Now, I'm going to address this first of all to Mr. Victor Dial. You know, when you ran for office, you said you didn't like micromanagement. Neither do I. You know, we should expect our managers to take, to take the bull by the horns and do their job. You know, but we got a problem, and this problem is a continuing problem. And this problem is affecting this community. And the problem is that this past Saturday, 4 police officers called in sick. That left 2 officers out on the streets. So what did they do? They dragged a couple guys from the dance details, made them work like 15, 18, 20 hours. I don't know what they work. And then they 2 of the officers just put in a 10-hour shift, and they put in another 8 hours. This is ridiculous. We fought this in 1996. We, as a police officer, with Mayor Bill Card, I fought this real vigorously. And Mr. Castillo remembers, because he was there at the police department, how we managed to get 8 police officers working per shift. Now, what happens when you have 4 police officers only 2 police officers and 4 calling sick? That means management is no longer respected for whatever reason. You know, if they don't fear management, when I was a police lieutenant, I put out the rules for people calling in sick. So there's obviously a problem in this, and they're dealing with the calls. And yesterday, he just left, Mr. Sala when we were sitting in Waterbury and we talked to a sergeant supervisor, and he says, you know what? The upper guys, they don't listen to us. The guys on the second floor, here we go again. They're not listening to us guys down here. This is wrong. Now, there's only one way to correct this. Go back to the drawing board and say, he said, this sergeant recommended 10 officers on the shift every day. Thank you.
Next.
Ivan Men.
Good evening. My name is Evan Mann. I am a Harlingen firefighter and, more importantly, a citizen of the Harlingen, capital city of the Valley. Currently, the duty of our profession, the Harlingen Fire Department, the Civil Service Commission, the elected city commissioners, city management, the city mayor, who is not here right now, and the duty of the capital city of the Valley to provide the necessary services for fire protection, life safety, and professional fire department standards set forth by the National Fire Protection Association for our city's taxpayers is at stake, and it is in question. And tonight, the city manager appointed Roy Rubio as interim fire chief. I think we have failed to realize that this is an exponentially critical decision-making process that will establish a powerful, permanently appointed position of head of the fire department, and it should not be rushed. What we should have done is maybe reevaluate the need and concept of designated leadership, the needs for thorough open communication between the Harlingen Fire Department and city management, and the need for financial accountability in our fire budget making process by properly allocating funds based upon need and a working knowledge and assessment of the resources we have available. And I'm going to say it, where we are lacking the resources to do our job as firefighters to the highest standard that our citizens deserve. And people didn't want me to say that today, but I said it anyway. And I may run out of time, but I think I deserve one more minute. I think we need to realize that we have a broad mission to help save lives and protect personal property. And I think we need a fire chief who encompasses these qualities of proper leadership, communication, and financial accountability. And I have the budget right here, and it's not a very good one. And it hasn't been a good one, and it wasn't a good one for the year and the year before that. So when we're forecasting a budget for the next year, we're going on stuff that isn't proper and doesn't allocate the needs of the fire department. And I'm going to say Roy Rubio does not encompass these qualities. He doesn't. We've had a decision, and we went with it. But what we failed to do is ask ourselves, who is Roy Rubio? Why is he not the fire chief of McAllen Fire Department? Was he resigned or forced to resign? How well is the South Texas College Fire Academy doing right now? Has he thoroughly succeeded in his mission as to protect lives and save property, or has he failed to do so? Insanity is doing the same thing more than once and not getting different results. Yet, we're doing the same thing more than once, and I can guarantee you we're not going to get different results. And I can tell you one thing, I don't know one person in the Harlingen Fire Department who thinks Roy Rubio would be a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Daryl Loftus.
Good evening, my name is Daryl Loftus, resident 809 Jim Hawk. I won't speak specifically about Mr. Rubio. I know him personally and professionally, so it's, for me being up here, it's not about that. Really, as a household, head of household, I really don't understand about going for groceries without looking to see what's in the cabinet or refrigerator first, or hiring a contractor to fix something that I'm not sure what needs to be fixed at the house. I don't know that any of us would do that, and I understand business. Going to school and getting a college degree, I learned about management doing things right, and then I also learned through academics and practicing that leadership is about doing the right thing. Then I also learned after a few more years that what's better is to have management and leadership to create situational leadership in which a situation arises and in a different spirit that produces an awesome result. And really, I hope whatever decisions y'all make help the future La Casita apartment fires and their residents and the crews that worked there for 4 hours and then went on to rescue somebody's life out of a Washington Street fire. So hopefully whatever decisions y'all make, they're going to provide excellent customer service, again, for the crews that worked the fire at the Adobe apartment fires as well, and the residents that were protected there and the property that was salvaged. Hopefully y'all's leadership and management will encourage the already present superior quality service that the department, both police and fire, provide. And hopefully this new venture will maybe bump it up a notch, but that's all we can hope for. Thank you.
We have Gary Ball, Lana Little, Mario Alvarado.
I wish to donate my time to the next speaker.
Redas.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Jose A. Redas Jr. I live at 2614 Blake Street. First off, I want to inform you that myself and my brother sitting behind me feel very disrespected. It was pointed out to me that you spent probably about an hour talking about nude sunbathing and signs and public safety. You did it behind those closed doors. Some of you expressed that you would like to run the city like a business. I believe in any business, the employees can develop sort of cohesiveness that assumes a family-like atmosphere. One in which not one of them will stand alone in difficult times. I believe that is what you see here. My brothers and their families are here in support of me and Assistant Chief Rodriguez. I believe that as heads of the family, you all have lost our trust and respect. The decisions that you made under the blanket of executive session were made without concern for those that will be affected the most and add to the hazards that already exist in our job. As I have already expressed to you in regards to the entire recycling plant, it took someone more than 300 miles away to show concern and consideration for the Harlingen citizens that you apparently lacked. I believe that you all had some authority in protecting the citizens of Harlingen, and in that you failed. The mayor stated that the fire chief should have the support of the commission. In our job, firefighters must have the support of his chief, not just the chief that is a good negotiator. Last, I need you all to understand, we are all here to serve the citizens of Harlingen. We serve with pride and passion in the protection of their property and their lives. We are proud and passionate about being firefighters. We are proud and passionate about being Harlingen firefighters.
Raymond Reyes.
Excuse me, I came in late. Is there any way I can have 2 or 3 minutes?
That other young man.
You give 2 minutes, but that's the last one.
My name is Kathy Ledesma, 1213 West Jefferson. In my opinion, the Harlingen Fire Department is the finest in the RGB. Sorry. The events that have developed in this fire department did not come very easy, nor did it come quickly. The department is what it is today due to the tireless efforts of its members, both past and present. Many people have come and gone. Many fires have been fought. Many heroic deeds have been performed. The firefighters of today are not different from the firefighters who took up a hose so many years ago. Truly, they are just as inspired and dedicated. They are more educated and better equipped. Educated to the point to where the interim chief position should have been from within the department. So my only question to you today is, why did Rubio leave the city of McAllen and Weslaco? If he is so highly qualified, why isn't he still employed at either cities? Thank you.
concludes our meeting. There's no other items on the agenda. We're adjourned.